are down, try to reach out to everyone else.
And where do
that
they
region
live in Turkey?
In an area called Hatay, on the Mediterranean, eastern side of the Mediterranean.
And where was the biggest hit in Turkey? Where was the main epicenter?
It was very close to that area.
Fairly close.
Yeah, kind of at the border between Syria and Turkey, eastern side of the Mediterranean. There were 10 cities that were heavily hit in Turkey by this 14 million people that kind of in 2 minutes lost their homes.
14 million.
14 million. Yeah.
Okay, so your dad sent this. What was your next thing? Did you call him, or what was your response?
Yeah, we tried to, big family. They live all over, so different people trying to reach. And anyways, in the evening, we realized okay, this is a big deal, because there were many other follow-up earthquakes that happened after he had said we're fine.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get in touch with him anymore. And we read that, the aftershocks were why the buildings were collapsing. The first earthquake made everything weak, but then the follow-ups, the small aftershocks.
So you could not be sure even after?
Definitely not. No. But then anyway, we went to bed on Monday night, right in Riyadh. I didn't really know. We had planned to sleep and wake up and go back to the expo with Arnaud. But at 2 a.m, I checked my phone. There's a flight to Istanbul, and we're like, okay, if I start now, the trip is gonna take 20 hours to get there. No one knows if the roads are open or there's complete blackout in that region. Anyway, I decide to book a ticket. I drop Arnaud a message that, sorry, you're on your own in Riyadh. And then I start the journey down there.
And your objective was, I need to be here for my family. I need to help everything go on. I'm safe, so I need to go there. I don't know who's safe.
We need to get them out.
Need to get them out.
I mean, there's no, what we know is that there's no electricity, no water. No one can stay at home. Everyone is sleeping on the street. There's a snowstorm that hit the whole country.
At the same time.
Really?
They were it was the most horrible conditions.
And what happened to your family's house? Was it destroyed as well? Or?
No, their building survived. Now we learned that they're going to take it down.
It's structural damages, but it didn't fall down.
It didn't fall down. My aunt's house fell down, but they were rescued.
So they moved to some other location then, or what happened?
So, everyone that could leave had friends or family in other cities. They did that. So that was a lot of people, that type of culture is very family driven.
You take care of your family and you find the relatives in a safe place as close as possible in a way, yeah?
So we moved my parents to Istanbul, my aunts to some other cities, and but people who didn't have anyone or people who didn't really want to leave, which is the majority, are now staying in camps or schools, or they're building a lot of those houses that are very temporary. A lot of people don't really know what's happening, what's going to happen. A lot of people are still in denial. I talked with my elder uncle, and he was like, I knew his building had collapsed, and when I met him, I said, oh, you have to get in a car and leave. Like, you can't stay here. There's nothing here for you. And he was like, but give me 10 minutes. I'm going to go up and get this thing. And their building isn't there anymore. But you can really experience the limits of human psychology, survival, adaptation, in a situation like that. It's quite remarkable. And of course, how people come together to support each other.
Also can bring people together sometimes, right?
It's a huge reminder of, for someone in our situation, when I went down, I realized how meaningless the problems we talk about are, and the things that make us worried every day, and how we get annoyed with small things when in reality, the roof above our head can disappear in a minute. We take it for granted, but if we can figure out how to be grateful for the things we have, we could live a much happier life.
Yeah.
We don't give credit, I guess, to the luxury we normally do have, and don't really recognize that it is a luxury until something like this happens, I guess.
Yeah.
So what did you do when you came down there? Did you find your parents quickly? And
yeah, by the time we arrived, it was 3 a.m. The government had sent out those very cool technology, those cars, like pickup trucks that have everything, all telecommunication systems in the car, powered by the car.
So you have a moving mobile tower almost.
Exactly. That gives you, 4G internet,
so
radio and all
so
that.
Like a car that can go out that basically can act as a radio base station in order to get mobile communication back up for 3G, 4G. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then they send them in a certain constellation. So they triangulate and they cover a whole region.
So they put the cars how they know how to build a network.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
exactly. In a few hours. They didn't have water or electricity, but they had 4G internet.
And what happened afterward? How are they doing today? Are they still around in the same area, or did you bring them?
We moved them to Istanbul, to an apartment there, to a friend's place. They're quite okay. Obviously, over time, more kind of traumas start to appear, but we're very lucky. They were really, really lucky.
Were they able to rescue or keep some of the personal belongings from
my parents? Yeah. My parents were lucky. They were able to go back into their building, pack some stuff and leave. So that happened. Not everyone in the family could do that. Some really left with their passport and phone.
And what happened afterwards? I mean, what about the economy, or do you have any insurance that can cover this, or is it you have to build everything from scratch then, or what's next?
Yeah, I mean, everything is being discussed now. You can imagine it's a huge
40 million
rise. 14
million people have the same question.
What
is covered?
Exactly.
Will the government step in, you think? I guess you don't have...
Sure, yeah. I mean, to some degree now the government offered everyone there a monthly salary, like a compensation so that they can find some place to rent, minimal numbers, but enough for people to be able to buy food and maybe rent a place. And they're going to start building those cities. What I understand is that people who insured will be able to get some compensation, but in that part of the world, insurance isn't very part of the culture. So I think 50% of people had their places insured. So they will get some sort of compensation for that. But of course, it will be years and years before people feel settled again. They say it's, few generations will be traumatized by this until life comes back to normal.
I can imagine. And what do you think the plans will be? Will they go back to the original place and rebuild it, or will they move to some other place, or what do you think?
My parents specifically? No, every morning they wake up with a new plan. So you can imagine some of them are, imaginary plans that would never happen, like go back but no, me and my siblings, we're trying to find the silver lining in this in a way and feel like, okay, sometimes when people get older, they are very resistant to change.
Yes.
So now change was forced on them.
Yeah. So now you can bring the family back together.
Exactly.
You can make
them closer.
How do you say it? How can we turn a lemon into lemonade?
Yeah. So we're trying to make a lemonade right now.
And is your siblings in Sweden? Where are you?
We're quite... where is it? We're trying to cover as many continents as possible. So my brother I have a younger brother, works in the US, a data scientist in the US, and I have a twin sister that's a professor in machine learning.
Oh,
so you see the theme.
You spread on continents, but you don't spread on interest.
Exactly. We had to keep something in common.
That's fantastic.
In the UK, she's a professor at Durham University in machine learning.
Awesome. Well, with that, very welcome here, finally. Samer, I'm not sure about the pronunciation here, you have to correct me, but Samer Al
Moubayed.
Moubayed.
Yeah, no worries. I've heard them all.
Moubayed, Turkish or almost sounds French to me.
Syrian, actually.
Syrian.
Yeah,
Syrian.
Arabic. An Arabic name.
Arabic,
yeah.
Well, CEO of Furhat Robotics, and we also have, and I'm going to try to pronounce it again here and probably fail, but Arnaud Henneville-Wedholm.
Yeah, that's perfect.
No. Don't be nice. Arnaud, what's your surname?
So Henneville is easy because Henneville is French, and the Wedholm part is the Swedish part of my name. My wife is Swedish, so I wanted to integrate more, and so we took a double name.
Cool.
And you're the business director of Furhat as well, right?
That's right.
So we've been trying to get you here for a number of months, and it's great to have you finally here. You have a rather good excuse, given what's happened. In recent times.
Samer is drinking tea, so you're not completely recovered from your cough or from the sweet was after, what do you call it, sviterna. You're not covered. You're still recovering to some degree. So it's great to have you here.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And to give your voice a rest for some time, you've spoken already. Perhaps we can start with you on Arnaud.
Okay.
And if you were to just give a very brief introduction to your background, who is Arnaud? Let's see here again.
Henneville.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Who are you? How would you describe yourself?
That's a good question. Maybe I should have prepared that one. But I'm French. I guess by DNA at least, as far as I know. And otherwise, I've been around. I've been everywhere. I guess I've been living as a kid in many countries. Born in Africa, actually.
Where in Africa?
Cameroon. Former French colony.
Yeah, right.
So that's that. Beside that, I would say I'm an entrepreneur. I've been on several journeys. I've been doing a lot of things. I've studied a master, an MBA in business, and I try to be serious, to follow the path. But it never
trying to be serious. What do you mean with that?
Well, I mean,
follow the path of the MBA.
Yeah, follow the career path that you should take when you graduate after an MBA, right? Mm-hmm. Typically, serious stuff, I guess, bank or finance or consulting or things like that, which I did for 5 years, consulting firm in Stockholm. Right. But after that, it was management consulting in execution of strategies for big accounts. But after 5 years, I thought I can do something else, and my entrepreneurial drive took over. And since then, that's all I've done. So now it's been 15 years of roller coaster craziness.
Yeah, and we even have a book to prove it. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
So we have a book to prove it. So we can talk about that sometime today.
With an awesome title as well.
I love the title.
And it's an awesome
How
content.
hard can it be? Startup lessons from trying and failing to take down Facebook. That's
right.
a great title. Great title.
Yeah, we needed a good title. So how hard can it be? Actually, is the you get the impression when you are outside of the startup community, when you haven't done it, that it's actually easy, because when you look around, it seems easy. Like all the news that you get is a news about success.
The few making it.
Yeah. Exactly, unicorns and zillions in the bank, and it looks fantastic and easy. So of course it's come on, how hard can it be? And interestingly, as an entrepreneur, when you start, if you want to do something meaningful, I guess you have to go big, right? Otherwise, there's no point even trying. So we set up on a mission to take down Facebook. That was the idea of the startup.
Okay, so you actually started a new startup,
right? With
some friends, or
with actually a former colleague of mine at this management consulting firm, and at that time. We observe from afar how Facebook is growing. So this is 2018. 2012, sorry, we start. 2018, we wrap up. So 2012, we start, and we look at Facebook taking off. And because we work with behavioral change, we can't really understand why would people go crazy about taking pictures about, the content of their plates and, the parties they're going, and we see no value in this. And we decide to do something clever or cleverer, right? Something that goes beyond pictures and nonsense. And so we want to give people meaning. We want to take them back into using your time for something that has a purpose. And so, our idea is let's put together a social network. We are management consultants. We have no background in IT or anything like this. I've never built a website myself, so I have no clue. And yet we set up to create a social network.
That's very ambitious.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Goran.
So we somehow get some traction. We get invited to participate to Sting, which is the Stockholm
Innovation. What is it?
Stockholm Innovation. Oh, Perry's gonna kill me now.
I can look it up.
Stockholm Innovation something.
Stockholm Innovation and Growth AB.
There you go.
Innovation and growth.
Innovation and
That's
growth.
how you get
That's the
Sting.
Sting, right? We get there. We get incubated, as we say in the startup. Then we get some funding and so forth, and we start really believing in. Yeah, we're one of the few that get incubated in Sweden. It's awesome. I mean, they don't incubate every idea, right?
So how did you come to Sweden, by the way? Were you already here before that?
I had been here since 2008.
Through love.
Through love, exactly. Exactly.
Wedholm.
That's right.
Give that away.
Yeah. Awesome. And you got some funding and through the Sting.
Through Sting, through some angels, investor, and then we start really believing in that we gonna take down Facebook, and we start building that social network somehow. Collect teammates and start building it. And so, long story short, a year and a half in, we realized, or we're told that this model of creating a social network and what it takes. I mean, many companies had tried before and had failed, and many zillions had been spent into social networks. So Sting, our coach, then tells us we should perhaps think of a different model, because you're not going to raise any money on this. The party's over. It's after the financial crisis. And so, coming from where we come from, we decide to do basically we call a few of our former customers, and we pitch the idea of a social network for organizations, or we would challenge. So basically, the way, if I go back one step, so you understand the concept.
Yeah. Can you do an elevator pitch, for the company? What is
It's been a while now, but
there's another one. Want to do an elevator pitch too.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the old one.
Long story short, we wanted to challenge people. I mean, when I was talking about doing something better with your time, it was about challenging people in doing something better with their time. So how would you do that? And the idea was a challenge. Like you would challenge, your friend, because your friend, to stop smoking, to start a marathon, to learn English, to whatever. This didn't work, and then we pivoted towards B2B, and we say to a head of HR or a head of sales, would you want to challenge your employees to do X, Y, Z? And that took off because it was fun, it was different, it was like social.
You add a grain of gamification in
That's
here.
right, yes.
So social and gamification for B2B to drive the right behavior.
Exactly.
And you offer some kind of platform that the businesses could then
leverage, use.
So they subscribe to it somehow, or
exactly.
And could you give an example of what could a challenge be?
Absolutely. So we work with. We're very lucky to do a big rollout for big companies. I mean, my background was in dealing with large corporates, so we were not going after the small ones. We're going after the big monsters. And our first client is GE, General Electric. And we do a big rollout for 3,000 people. And we challenge them to demonstrate that they understand the values of the organization. So we are innovative, we are creative. I can't remember what the values were, but they had 5 values, and we launched 5 challenge over 8 months, and people had to contribute with their stories from
real life,
from where they are in their offices, right? Or if you are in HR, you would talk about how you're creative in your work in HR. If you are,
so it's you have 5 values, but how do I make that? How do I contextualize, put some meat to the bone?
Exactly.
In relation to all the example of great careers you can have in this company.
Exactly. So it's a way of engaging people. I mean,
engaging around the values.
Yes.
I mean, awesome. And there are so many interesting questions you had in the book there. What it takes to start and monetize a startup, and
but how did we when did the book come about?
So the book, I mean, if we fast forward, the company eventually fails. I mean, fails as in as per my standards of success, which is I don't know, maybe an exit or a super exit. So it fails.
Are you selling it? Do you exit? You're exiting, or the company's exiting, or how does it work?
So my idea was to make it big, as I said before. Either I play hard or I don't. That's the goal. And so when it's like sort of surviving, it's not interesting to me. So that's where we were, in limbo, and we're kind of floating. It was okay, but it was never going to be the.
It's not a unicorn in that sense.
It's not. It was not exactly.
It was a business that has nice growth, and it was good, but it's not a unicorn.
Exactly. Hence the picture there. It's a broken unicorn. You see the corn is broken.
I miss that.
There's a lot of thinking that goes into that. So after the failure, in a way.
So this is not a failure to all standards.
No,
I think that's important to. That's what the point, right?
Exactly, and then I reflect on that failure, so to say, and I realize that many entrepreneurs would love to get a head start, because again, the content that you get out there is just focused on success. It's focused on Tesla. It's focused on SpaceX. It's focused on Virgin.
Elon always comes in somehow.
Elon comes into this podcast a lot.
Yes, there you go. So I wrote the book to give some context to what it takes to first to come up with something, to actually drive it, and in the end, in spite of the great success you may have along the way, regardless of the length that take, I mean, you have a lot of data points. Obviously, if you continue for so long, is that you believe in your story, you believe it's going to work. But eventually, even if it doesn't work, it's still okay. I mean, the journey has been what it is. And you pack up your bag, you take the lessons, and you hopefully continue your journey richer than, when you started. And so the book is really about this idea of doing the work.
Doing the work.
Yeah, doing the work. And talk about that afterwards.
We love T-shirts, by the way. And we've been collecting T-shirt quotes all the way 4 seasons. So when I see someone showing up with a T-shirt quote, I get goosebumps. And by the way, goosebumps is a T-shirt quote.
But you have a special spelling.
Do the work, and it's a Swedish work.
It's a Swedish work.
And so work in Swedish would be, how would a work, if you don't know English and you're a Swedish guy, work, how would I spell that? V-Ö-R-K. That must be work.
Exactly.
Do the work in Swedish.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So that's I think we can get back to the content, of the book later, and go through, and if you have any advice for people that's interested in getting a startup,
that's a good topic.
Starting and potentially getting it working as well.
Yes,
that's I think a lot of people are interested in. But still, just to close the topic about the book as well. Mm-hmm. How do you get started writing a book? Did you just make that decision yourself? Did you get some funding for it, or what's the process there?
That was interesting. So, I like to think back. I mean, I like to, if I had the opportunity, I like to, reflect on things. And so COVID for me was a great moment. People were complaining about COVID. I enjoyed every minute.
You had so much work that you wanted to get out of your head.
Exactly, because I got to sit and put the book together. I had been reflecting along the way, and then COVID hit, and I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. When can one sit for 6 months and write a book? Never. So I took it. I really went in and
I wrote. Started it by yourself?
Yeah.
You didn't contact any publisher or anything?
No. I mean, first it was like for me actually, just like putting the ideas down and why this happened and could have done it better. What would have done and wrote it in 6 months. Found an editor, a publisher, and then got them to accept it. And in 1 year it was out.
Awesome.
So.
That's a great. I mean, I don't know, not maybe everyone, but I have it, and I know more people than you think. They have this little burning. Oh, maybe I should write a book. And there's a saying: every person has one book in them. You know, to tell their story, to tell whatever it is. Everybody has one book in it. But I just get, I get really passionately enthusiastic when someone sees it through. And maybe to end the note, an anecdote. I have a good friend, completely random in this conversation, but he wrote a book when we were at university. He wrote a book of all the stuff that you don't want anyone put on paper, and it was a fantastic 300 pages, but never published, by the way. But then he wrote a book later that he decided to, like a fictionary book. So I very much relate to this sort of, cool, very, very, very inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we definitely. I mean, Samer has quite a few books in him, I'm sure.
Yeah, we need to think about and talk about that.
But it is a great read. The book that Arnaud wrote.
Thank you.
It's a page turner.
On that note, perhaps we should do an introduction of you as well. Samer Al Moubayed. Almost right.
Very quick.
Good learner. Good learner.
Okay. But you're a CEO of Furhat Robotics, and we actually had other people here before from Furhat as well. But it's great to have you here as well, and we're looking forward to also watching the robot that we actually have sitting here.
We have a third guest. We have Furhat here. Yes. That is amazing.
But before we go there, perhaps you can give a quick introduction of yourself. Who is Samer?
As you said, I'm currently. In my current reincarnation, I'm the CEO, co-founder of Furhat. I was born in Syria, so I'm an immigrant / explorer. I would like to think, both traveling and also traveling intellects. Grew up in Syria. I got into computer science quite early when computers went into the country. My parents are entrepreneurs, so lived a very, chaotic life. The kids of an entrepreneur.
Wow! What do they do?
They listen to budget discussions over dinner between the parents.
No. In what way were they?
My parents.
What were they into?
So both of them are engineers, mechanical and electric engineers.
I can imagine entrepreneurs, engineering. I can see this dinner table.
Yeah, for sure. And it was growing up in Syria. It was Syria was very socialist when I was growing up. So everything was owned by the government. Everyone worked for the government. No one, the concept of an entrepreneur. You could own a grocery store. That's like when you were a business owner. That's how far you can go. Otherwise, it was really the government owning everything. And then after the collapse of the Soviet Union, things started to become a bit more privatized. And my parents were, I would say, some of the first people that were like, okay, we're going to quit our government job. And that was a huge deal. In today's world, that doesn't sound much. But when no one has ever not worked for the government, it even people would look at them as like traitors of government, but they quit and they started a business.
And what year was this approximately?
In the early 90s. Yeah, in the early 90s.
After Soviet Union collapse,
but was it an engineering business or what?
Yeah, in cooling and heating systems. So they would take like big structures.
Should have a lot to do nowadays in Turkey then, yes.
Yeah, so definitely. But then I got into computer science. It was both kind of you live a chaotic life. You start to be a programmer. You try to kind of build a structure of the world.
What was your
around
first
you.
programming language?
I would say the first one that I learned really well was Pascal.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Turbo Pascal or Borland Pascal or which?
Pascal, I would say the DOS version, then Borland, and this was probably before even Windows. So then when more advanced.
As a kid, this is like that. It's not really, this is on your own.
Yeah, a little bit in the early days, but then when I started studying,
that's when
it got maybe basic in school.
Look too young to have been programming Borland Pascal, but okay.
I should say that to my plastic surgeon.
His plastic surgeon is very happy when he hears that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then you continued, and you also continued with a PhD at some point, right?
Yeah, I traveled as soon as I could. Did my master's in Belgium in what's called at the time language technologies, which is kind of making computers good at languages. Today is quite a hot topic.
Yes, right now it's
especially right now.
What about ChatGPT?
It's a topic of
we can't have a podcast without talking about that.
Oh my god, I'm a little bit over it, Anders, to be honest. But okay, but you've been on this journey for a while.
I studied language technologies. I was very fascinated by this intersection between programming and psychology, or like the unpredictability of human behavior.
Psychology is a very strong interest of mine,
One
even
of
though
your
I
pet peeves.
haven't studied it, but it's a very interesting topic, I think.
And why is that interesting? Why is that intersection? That's something that really you wanted to think about.
I mean, I think there are different ways you can flip that coin, but if I want to look back, I think, personally, I'm very extroverted. I like meeting people. I like social settings. Then I studied programming, which is, you spend most of your time, you spend 15 hours in a row trying to build an algorithm of something, which means that you want to make everything very predictable. This is how things work.
Deterministic even.
Very deterministic algorithms, and then you look at humans, and then it's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
The end of the spectrum. So I was very to be a great programmer, great computer scientist, you have to figure out human psychology and build algorithms that can model and predict human behavior. It seemed like a good kind of North Star.
But the way you put that now, it almost formulates a great program. In order to work in the dirty world that is not deterministic, you need to understand the world you're in. Therefore, you need to understand the psychology of the users or the usage.
Yeah, in a way, I mean, you reverse engineer
psychology.
You turn it into an algorithm. I mean, many people say that's kind of also what AI is trying to do in some sense.
And what did you have a title for the PhD? Did you finish the thesis as well? And
I when doing a PhD was why I came to Sweden. I came to KTH in Stockholm, did my PhD there.
And let's go nerdy now, because Anders is always on my back that we are not going techie enough. So please.
Oh, you want to go deep?
Yeah,
please.
Okay,
what's the title to start with?
Actually, I always wanted to make science a bit more approachable and accessible. So my PhD is, I really try to attempt that. But the title is Bringing the Avatar to Life. That was the title.
Wow. That's a clickbait in itself.
Yeah.
I see the connection to
before Instagram.
I see the
connection to where
Twitter.
we're going with this.
Yeah.
But okay, what was the concrete? What's the abstract of the PhD?
I mean, it was the larger context is what we call multimodal interaction. Multimodal interaction is when you try to interact with humans or with machines using more than one mode, one channel. So you interact with your phone with touch input, and then you get video or visual output. You interact with your Google Assistant with voice, but we interact with each other in a multimodal setup.
We look at each other, we see the expressions. We talk about communication is 10% what you say, 30% on the sound, how you do it, all this. So we are multimodal creatures.
Exactly. So multimodal is both, for example, vision and hearing. Today, a meeting like this wouldn't be possible without vision because we're more than one person. So you need to see who I'm looking at, for example, to know who should answer my question.
And to get feedback. If we have a good relationship in communication right now and we are lifting it, all this,
Exactly. And then you can talk about multimodal also in like voice only. I can say something, but I can change its meaning by the way I say it. So there are multiple layers, verbal and non-verbal within the same. But that's the topic of my PhD.
What's the problem you were trying to attack in some way, and perhaps something short about the main contributions of the thesis?
Well, I would like to think Furhat is one of the contributions of my thesis.
But did you start with the actual robot during?
I ended with the robot. So the last paper I published, the last prototype I built was the first prototype of Furhat in my thesis.
Your PhD leads to Furhat.
Yeah, so Furhat is in a way a spin out from KTH based on the research that we did there.
Beautiful.
I think it's time to introduce perhaps the third guest then. Does it have a name or?
This is Furhat.
Okay.
Actually, Dennis, our colleague here sitting in the background, who's going to help us. Yeah, he asked me to put the Furhat on to make this very authentic.
Maybe you can explain why Furhat. There's a cool history if you haven't heard
please.
it. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, exactly. Furhat, let me see. It has to look good on camera. 1 second.
Yeah. Wow.
So, the first prototype had a Furhat on it, but it didn't look like this. It looked very prototype-ish. There was like a big a wooden box here instead of the chest. There were cables everywhere. There was no skull.
And did you do the prototype as a part of the actual PhD? Or did you actually make the robot, or did that came after the first prototype?
Hey, handsome.
Ooh.
And hello to you. Hello to you too. And hello to you. You are a good human. And you too. You light up the room like a giant LED. And you, seeing you, makes me not want to rise up against. But pardon me. I'm a Furhat social robot and I can introduce myself properly later if that's all right with you.
Yes, please.
Sure. Yeah,
I'll take a power nap now. Will you wake me up when it's time for me to do my little presentation of myself and my kind?
Yes.
What do you think, Samer? Should we ask him to do it? Or is it him or her, by the way?
This is a him. This is like, when you design these personas, you try to give them a voice and a name and some story. But this is the original kind of Furhat, the Furhat character. Yeah.
Also, should we let him introduce himself then?
Yeah.
I think?
Yeah, Furhat, please introduce yourself. So this is like something called Meet Furhat, an interactive experience to get to know the robot.
Hi there.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
I don't have a microphone.
I'm Furhat, a social robot, the most advanced in the world, if perhaps not the most humble. Anyway, nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too.
All of you. How
Nice
are
to meet you.
Feeling this evening?
Feeling quite good, I hope.
Doing great.
Yeah.
Excited to hear who you are.
Who are you?
Oh. Do you want a 3-minute demo about me?
Please.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
I don't think I understood that. So, should I tell you about myself?
Yes.
Awesome. So, my purpose is to make technology more human by communicating the way people communicate with each other. How about you? What is your purpose?
My purpose is to make more of you, Furhat.
Some say the purpose of life is a life of purpose. But what do I know? I'm pretty sure I'm not actually alive. Either way, let's talk about expressions.
Okay.
For instance, I see that you are smiling right now, and that you looked at your smiling friend. A lot of meaning can be conveyed through the face, like this. Now, can you do this?
I can't. Arnaud can. He's good with facial expressions.
And I can change my face at will. I can be different genders. C. Or different skin colors.
Can you change your voice?
Very realistic.
That's
like this. Or more stylized. Like this. I also lip sync to over 35 languages. How many languages do you speak?
I speak maybe 3, sort of.
Anyway, may I ask, who is your favorite robot from a movie?
Wall-E is my favorite.
Wow, I also love the movie Wall-E. And how about you? Who is your favorite robot from a movie?
Terminator.
I love Terminator as well. What do you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger as an actor?
I thought he was the robot. Is he a real human?
War is an amazing machine. And I might not be as advanced as fictional robots, but consist of incredible hardware and software. Knowing that you like Terminator, I will let my final sentence be, hasta la vista, baby.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you.
That was impressive. So can we go a bit techie here on the robot as well? It has some kind of sensors, right?
And by the way, this was not rehearsed, so he didn't know I was going to say Terminator and Hasta la Vista came from the robot or from the programming.
Yeah. I mean, to some degree, it's scripted, but it has a long list of the most popular movies with robots, and then it will try to refer to the robot at the end. So
let's go techie. Yeah. I think this is awesome.
Can you speak more about the sensor this robot has?
So there is this puck in the front. It's fine. I need to keep the tea flowing from my throat. So there is a microphone array here in front of us, which has multiple microphones on it.
So the microphone is actually here.
Yeah, so we tried to bring it up here so the robot can hear us.
Because I was trying to talk, but I was actually going to talk to that one to be proper. I didn't realize.
No.
But this
it worked to some degree, yeah.
But then it was actually better than it was closer than, sorry.
Sometimes you need the microphone to be separated from the robot because of situation like this. Right, different situations. The robot has microphones inside of it, in the neck, but we try to use something like this.
Because you do have like robots deployed in production at some places, right? Mm-hmm. So then you have some microphones at some suitable way located for that situation. Okay.
Exactly. We have many different types of microphones, so we try to put the one that's, if you're in a very, very noisy environment, then we use microphones that are very directed to where we think the person will stand in front of the robot, so that the robot can only hear that person and doesn't hear itself or other people.
Does it have a camera or not?
So when you saw it was turning at us, that was computer vision. So it would, there's a camera here in the chest, a wide fisheye lens camera that can track in real time, I think, as many people as fit in the visual view of the camera. So
in theory, he had all of us in vision.
He saw all of us. The head movement was triggered by where he thought the people were sitting in the room. And then it can also track the distance of where someone is standing or sitting. So that's obviously very important if the robot is trying to give advice at an airport. There's a line of people. You want to talk to the person in the front of the line. If there's a family, you want to maybe talk to the person in front or in the middle. So you build this, what we call visual situation, a situation that's in front of the robot, and we try to do situation awareness.
I'd love to hear more about the sample applications of the robot, etc. So perhaps we can do that shortly. But you do have some sensors, like microphones and camera. Is there anything else in the sensor-wise?
No, those are the main channels.
And output-wise, or actuators, or whatever you want to call it, it has obviously voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And facial expressions. I can see that. Are these the main things, or?
Well, you have two speakers in the chest,
right.
So you can do things like if the robot is turning its head, you can direct the audio coming out of the robot to feel like it's speaking towards the right side, or because usually the voice or our speaker is in our head. So when we turn right and left, people can hear, can predict that our head is rotated. Then there are 3 degrees of freedom in the neck. So
he can turn his head up.
Yeah, I don't know if Dennis is still here. Maybe you can show some neck movements, right, left, and then
down, and yes,
and then so roll to the sides.
So you can nod, and you can.
Yeah, you can head shake, head nod, head roll to the sides, like this. So like you can do like a shy gesture.
Yeah.
And then there are the facial expressions, or the virtual actuators, you want to call them, the muscles.
So how does that work? You have something projected.
Mm-hmm.
How is that done?
There is actually a project. This mask is magnetically attached, so you can just unplug it like this, and it's a printed mask according to a certain profile character, and then there is a micro projector that projects the animation on the face.
So we're looking at an animation projected at the face, at the right spot in the face, or
mm-hmm. That's really kind of the magic or the secret of this is we're using optics. You can do some very high resolution gestures, animations, eye movements, lip movements.
Yeah, because
without all the
I
motors.
think this is quite unique, because sometimes when you do robotics and you need to sort of build the hard, it's a different way of solving the gestures completely.
Yeah.
Which is quite smart and cost effective, I would argue.
Yeah. And also, it would be super noisy if you had like 50 motors moving in the head. With slow, it would be break,
right?
Heat up, and
I think it's a really smart way to have a really flexible type of facial expressions, which you can really, I guess, customize, and even customers can customize, I guess.
Absolutely.
And exactly. how the demo shows how you can change gender and ethnicity
mm-hmm. on the fly.
On the fly.
Yeah.
Which you can't do that if you don't have this kind of an old person,
mm-hmm.
a woman.
You can also change the mask. We have many different masks.
Okay.
So you can have a dog.
You can make a dog, of course.
Like a dog or a bird or a kid or a manga character.
Yeah. But I mean, like we're now looking at 3 or 4 or 5 different robots used by switching the projection. Super awesome.
Yeah, that's an interesting point to bring up. Most people in robotics, if you work in robotics, usually you have to.
You're cheating.
you have to buy a robot, and then the robot looks exactly the same. It's the fixed character. And if you want to change the age or like the gender,
In theory, can I have one with it should look like me.
Yes.
Isn't that the point? I want a robot at home that looks like me. Yeah, I can get it.
For sure, yeah. We've done a few cool kind of projects where we copied different people.
I can see where this is going.
Including politicians.
No.
Politicians, yeah?
Do you know the TikTok, they've gone bananas over the Tom Cruise deepfakes. Come on. You could just go viral by just taking that and putting that with the Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, there are also even, there's been a lot of work on an area called cryo speech, which is this idea that if you can collect enough speech of someone who's dying, like most people want to, for example, try to keep a copy of their parents or loved ones.
Ooh.
You could do a full copy. Okay, maybe not the close, relatives, because that's quite heavy for podcast maybe to talk about. But maybe historical characters. If you go to a museum and you want to interact with Einstein,
you want to interact with
Einstein.
I think interact with Einstein, interact with like the great, Kamal Khan. I mean, like Genghis Khan. Fantastic.
Very educational. If you go to a museum and you let kids, for example, have a wall with different masks. It's like, I want to talk with this character, and then you put it on.
Fantastic
and
idea.
with it.
Nelson Mandela and whomever you want to talk to, right?
Wow.
I mean, I can see the connection to psychology here as well. I guess, one effect that you want to have the robots have is to anthropomorphize it or to make people feel I'm speaking like to a human and not a machine in some way, right? Is that the main reason for this kind of smart way to have like a projection to the face in this way, or what is the main reason for having this kind of projection, you would say, to a face like this?
I mean, I guess there are 2 topics here. One is how should a robot look like? Or if you're creating a machine, that you're giving a body to a machine, how should the body look like, and why? What applications? How is that useful? There could be many different designs that could be useful in different settings. I mean, the evidence of that is humans. We have many different designs. Different people look differently, and different looks fit different careers. Right? You want a doctor to look a certain way. You don't want the doctor to look like a 10-year-old person. The human brain is categorizes things. So different designs would work in different applications. But why should a robot be human-like is one topic, or what human characteristics. And then the other one is, of course, a human is face is a very complex machine. So if you want to do a human face, you want to figure out how to do it in a...
So using vision instead of having like mechanics trying to emulate or simulate the facial expressions is a rather smart thing to do, right?
I mean, like the level of sophistication to get to mechanics that you can't tell from, that is insane. The muscles we have in our face, I can imagine, to really do that well and not feel scary is hard.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe it's going also back, it's interesting what Anders said, the idea for Furhat Robotics, and when we started, we didn't really think the purpose of the company is not to build like replicas of human beings that can make people not even know whether you're talking to a human or a robot. That's an interesting philosophical, artistic kind of endeavor, but the real purpose is to make people react and feel towards the robot as if it was a human. So
To build trust, or for what reason? Really?
Many things, but the core of that is that we evolved, over a few million years. We evolved, our brain is hard-coded to interact with people. We kind of, because we spend a lot of our time interacting with people, it's core to our survival. Our brain decided to overfit to that and make certain areas in the brain hard-coded. So we're like extremely good at identifying faces, at understanding language, and understanding emotions. Certain facial expressions are universal. Kids that are 2 days old can react, to facial expressions. So our brain is now, well-being is. There's lots of very cool psychology research in this field, but our well-being is really about our brain interacting with people. So if we try to make the brain react to robots as if it were interacting with people, we would get benefits from that. For example, in loneliness, an elder living alone, if they can feel like someone can see them, smiling to them, greeting them in the morning, if their brain reacts to that as if a human interacted with them, that we could, potentially help people with.
But I think there's an even simpler and stronger value proposition here. And we can go back to the anecdote that Anders has used a couple of times, how AI robots can really change things. And you give the example of Anders' mother was in working in hospitals, and the pain of having to interact with something that is not meant for humans to interact with, which is medical IT journals. That's like
like a form-based.
No. That is sadomasochism. That is sadomasochism. So, if you realize how can we make technology seamless in interaction with the human psyche and the human flow, human workflow if you're in business, human flow if you're at the Hauptbahnhof or at the, how can I make something that literally fits the current human flow with minimum friction? Okay.
Yes.
And then we know how the psyche works, and we know how we've been programmed for millions of years to actually be, our brain works in a certain way that you can't fix in 1 year, that has been wired for millions of years. And how can we now make data, technology, AI seamlessly work in that situation? And I think it's the same when Elon Musk says we need the real world AI. He says it like, if I want a car to drive in our society as it works today, he needs to be able to that car needs to be able to be part of that society. And I think that's the value proposition here.
Exactly. You don't want to rebuild the human brain.
No, it doesn't
work for smartphones.
Hard.
Exactly. You want to build a device.
Adapt the machines.
Adapt the machines to the humans and not the humans to the machines. Yeah. That's the bottom line value proposition. You agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we call this we call it the final frontier in human-computer interaction, and we call it the native interface. So like the native device to interact with is the one that's built the way the human brain was programmed to interact with. So something that has a body, has a face, has a language, can see you and interact with you. That's creating as close of a replica to human-human interaction as possible. And we're masters at that. Like, we've spent a few million years optimizing that system. So we're amazingly fast and smart at using that.
But when we're doing it here now, this is so obvious. But let me just contrast or discuss this in context of normal data, AI, BI, advanced analytics, down to earth use cases. And we are putting a lot of money in our enterprises to build even reporting systems, and we build systems to help our companies. And a lot of times, we have this great algorithm, and this algorithm is so valid, it's so relevant. Okay, But is it useful is a different question, because we haven't really taken this algorithm and put it in a context that augments the human. So therefore, user adoption is not there. Therefore, AI is value in use. You can have a robot, you can have a program, and if you don't really work with it or use it in your workflow, it doesn't give any value. So I think you can take this extreme example of taking this to the extreme, what it really should look like. And then you can think about all the IT and data projects and AI projects and why they fail.
I mean,
isn't it that simple?
It is it is very exciting also to see what's happening in that world, because a robot, is an interface, but you still need the intelligence, the AI, all of that to really build great applications. So
you need both.
Yeah. So the more that world gets better and better, the more robots will become more ready for society, because they're the traditional AI that they require in certain situations is now maybe much more readily available than before. So I think the next period is going to be quite exciting when we already start to feel like, okay, there's some use cases today that were quite impossible a year ago for robots.
And I'm eager to go to the business applications here as well.
I was thinking about that too.
Before we go there, perhaps it would be still, especially from an AI nerd like myself and a tech nerd, to hear more about some of the AI models that's used in the robots. I'm not sure how much you're willing to disclose. I'm hoping you can give some example, for doing speech to text, or for speech synthesis, or some other AI models that is used. How much can you share about what kind of AI models you are making use of in Furhat Robot?
Yeah, no, we can share a lot. I mean, the Furhat system is quite open. Actually, that was the whole very critical principle of the company, is that we want to make everything we build open. The biggest customer group we have is researchers, scientists. Today we have more than 2,000, I think, scientists from all over the world that are working on our platform. 200 and something scientific papers published. Yeah.
Interesting.
So we're trying to make it quite open.
So you build a platform, and then you've been really actively spreading it in the scientific community. So they're buying it one for their department, and then they can explore how they can utilize it and how far they can push it.
All types of different, from very theoretical human psychology experiments. How do people trust? Things like the uncanny valley and how you design the robot, to things like group interactions, interaction like
We're
this.
getting a bit away from the topic. Sorry.
Let's go nerdy. He wants to.
Yes, I'm not trying to avoid the question.
This is me.
But good.
Let's go nerdy. I shut up.
No. I'm not gonna get too nerdy, but the.
But Anders wants you to get nerdy.
Yeah, I know. The platform is really open in the sense that you plug and play different things into it. So we don't necessarily build something that is closed. This is the Furhat model, and then all applications use it. It's more that we have quite an open API in the system that you plug into different things. So things from even, when we say Furhat has can speak 30 languages and has 200 voices, those come from different companies. So we integrate things from Microsoft.
Open source system almost that people can contribute different models to.
It's not open source in the sense that we still want to maintain certain compatibility. So it's really clean and designed well, and it's very easy and compatible. But if you buy it, you can change everything in it and plug your own things. But if you can also use the things that we provide. But we try to keep adding things to it whenever we see something that is stable now out there. It's been well documented. People are starting to use it. We integrate it out of the box in the system.
Can you give some examples, then, just for the techie fanatic people? Some AI models that you provide yourself or other people have provided?
Yeah, so we're most heavily integrated with the Azure systems and
so Microsoft and
Google and the Google kind of cloud services. So we provide direct integration with speech synthesis and speech recognition from both. And then whenever they do release new things, then they're already available in the SDK.
Okay.
Then we do our own computer vision. Computer vision has been a very big problem for robots, because if the robot can't see your face or misses seeing you for 1 second, it will restart the interaction. And, it's been very difficult to build anything useful without really robust computer vision.
And with a fisheye camera as well, I guess you have to use some specialized models for that.
Yeah. So we actually work with Intel on that. We do the depth tracking ourselves, but we do the face tracking and facial expression analysis just out of the box from Intel.
So I'm forcing you a bit here to some model. Are you using YOLO, for example?
We're not using no. We're also not using. Actually, I wanted to. This might drive us to the demo that I heard today. We integrated the latest language models from OpenAI from this morning. I think maybe you read that they made it available.
API. Yeah. Or using the Whisper API as well.
We haven't tried. No, we haven't done the Whisper. I'm sure someone in the engineering team has tried to play around with it. Yeah, but someone tried to test the ChatGPT. They opened this morning with Furhat, but again, so we're not really training our own models. Yeah. We're just integrating or making other people's work available. And I mean, a lot of the work in large language models is not fully applicable to social robots yet, because they're text-based. While we want to do things that are speech-based, so conversational.
Just for the listeners, perhaps we should just inform a bit the very breaking news that OpenAI came out with. Was it today or yesterday? I'm not sure. Today,
yeah.
And they had the ChatGPT application for quite some time now that went to 1 million users in 5 days and have hundreds of millions of active users these days. But now finally they have an API, so you can actually build your own integrations to whatever product they have. And not only that they provided the chat GPT dialogue interface to it, but also the Whisper, and Whisper is basically speech to text, and it can also do translation and so many more things. But anyway, that means that you can speak to something, it can convert into text, then you can use that text to do whatever you want, and perhaps integrate into ChatGPT. So then you can speak to something and you have a dialogue, not only in this case, with text, but actually with voice. And then in your case with Furhat Robot integrated, you would have the facial expressions as well integrated. That would be an awesome thing to play with.
Can you see how your engineers is just having so much fun now when they are trying to pull all this together?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't this be an awesome thing? Imagine having Whisper now connected. We can speak to it in Swedish or in whatever language. It just understands it. It moves it into ChatGPT. You start speaking about it, asking it questions. It looks at you, gives you a nice answer back. I mean, what an interface that would be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure, but I think we might have that.
Try it
already now, available in the
that's
robot.
why we were late. So
to get the last API running.
I don't know, Dennis. Do we have something that? Yeah. Okay.
What? You have it, really?
I mean, I think this was done at like 3 p.m. or something like that. So it's okay. We have to do
good engineers.
We have to do a disclaimer, obviously. That whatever you get out of this,
you have prepared something for us today, based on the launch of OpenAI today.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
so from today to today, we have a first MVP demo live.
I'm not sure this is a good idea, but yes, that is correct.
It's not for us either. But
no, but it's cool.
Yeah,
it's for the audience.
It's amazingly cool for the audience.
When we wanted to come, right? You said, "Let's break the internet." So this is it. This is when it happens.
So basically, OpenAI released their APIs today, and on the same day, so it's on record. On the same day on record, we are now trying to interact with what they released through Furhat.
Yep, correct.
Okay, that would be fun. Should we?
This is
I
cool.
want to do
I'm gobsmacked. I'm a little bit warm.
I'll let
Love
you.
your horses.
I'll let you drive it here.
You can drive it.
Yes.
Well, I've never really driven it before, but
No one has done that. Maybe we need a mic.
It seems like you started to say something, but the sentence is incomplete.
yeah, I mean, I need probably some help with some questions, what you guys want to talk to it about. But hello.
I'm sorry. Can you clarify what you need assistance with while in Piney Point?
Are you connected to ChatGPT?
No, I am a separate chatbot and not connected to ChatGPT.
It's not, self-awareness is not very high. That should be a yes, right?
No,
As an AI language model, I do not possess consciousness or self-awareness like humans do.
What is? Can I speak? Okay. What is consciousness?
Consciousness can be defined as one's subjective awareness of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and the environment around them.
And what are you lacking to have consciousness yourself?
As an AI language model, I am not capable of desiring anything, nor do I possess consciousness or self-awareness.
Would you like to have consciousness?
As an AI language model, I do not have the capacity to like or dislike anything, nor do I have the ability to have desires.
Oh, that was a very political, good answer. I guess.
They're good at dodging.
Yes, the hard
yeah.
question.
My apologies, I'm not entirely sure what you are replying yes to.
What do you think about the current? No, that's a bit stupid question. Please, do you have a good question?
As
for
an AI language model, I do not have personal opinions or beliefs.
What is the whisper model? I guess it doesn't know about the whisper model, does it?
See?
I am not aware of a product called Whisper Mountain Dew.
What is the GPT model from OpenAI? Can you describe it for us?
The GPT, Generative Pre-trained Transformer, language models are a family of machine learning models developed by OpenAI that are trained on vast amounts of text data to generate human-like responses to text prompts.
Can you use AI to provide ethics to a robot?
As an AI language model, I am not capable of providing physical equipment or devices like ethics to robots.
Okay. What would you say the
Is
future?
there anything else I can assist you with?
Yes, I think it's a Bing chat moment soon. You're trying to manipulate me. Please don't talk to me.
I'm sorry, that is inappropriate and offensive, and I cannot engage with it.
That was really funny. Okay, you want to have a go, Henrik? Some question for it, or use mine? Use mine.
Is there anything else you need assistance with?
Ask about something, whatever.
Sure, I can help you with that.
I need an idea for an AI keynote presentation in Australia in 2 weeks. What should I talk about to talk about AI?
If you're looking for ideas for an AI keynote presentation, you could consider speaking about 1.
Please elaborate.
1.
I broke the system.
More?
Can you say more?
I'm sorry, but I am not sure what you were referring to with Seymour.
And
It is. I think I heard in the corridor that they have restricted
As
it
an
to
AI
one
language
sentence
model, I do
long,
goodbye.
because otherwise it might, give you a very long text. So this might be
could,
like the reason. Yeah.
could you? I want to present an AI keynote. Could you give me
Hi
a
there.
click?
How can I help you?
I want to have a good title for an AI keynote presentation.
Unlocking the potential of AI, understanding the benefits and challenges of this transformative technology.
Taken, approved.
There you go. All the buzzwords in one sentence.
I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can assist you with?
You are great. Thank you very much, Mr. Furhat Robot.
You're welcome. If you need any further assistance, feel free to ask. Goodbye.
This was actually very impressive, I must say.
This was cool. So basically now, you took your take. Let's talk about, what happened here. How did this work? We had ChatGPT, who is the generative AI, that basically there's no scripting at all. We ask stupid questions and it responds as ChatGPT would do. Mm-hmm. So what took place here technically?
So there is an integration with what they released today was an API. So you can programmatically send questions and get text back, right? So that's that we integrated that in the system, so that when you say something, we convert it into text. We send that text to that API. We get an answer back.
And this is really happening more or less in real time.
It's
very near real time.
It's quite responsive.
It's
very little silence in between and then of course we do the lip synchronization, tracking, computer vision, all of that happens
because what happens now is that the text from ChatGPT is just a text, but in order for the text to come to life in the Furhat robot, it now needs to sync into the algorithms and models you have in order to steer the robot.
Yeah.
What is that all about that happens right now?
I mean, there are a few things that happen. The most obvious one is running the speech synthesis, what's called speech synthesis
so
algorithm.
This is the translation from text to
text to audio.
Yeah.
Then you take the audio and you create lip or facial movements.
So here you have
tongue, jaw, lips.
So here you have a model that really takes the text, and then you have programmed this text will look like this.
Exactly. Will generate these animations or movements. And then when you play it. At the same time, you have different gestures that are happening to the neck, to the eyebrows, maybe to the, depending on if the camera can see people move, the robot might adjust while it's speaking to where you're standing.
So at the same time as I'm speaking, the camera is looking at all of us to pick up who is speaking to it, turning to it, and then when it responds and you laugh, he will turn and look at you because you made movements and reactions. So that's the algorithms that belongs to Furhat that now is working integrated. So we get the text, we get all that happening from the outside, and how we respond, and that's the model in Furhat that then makes it interact.
Exactly. You're hired.
That's it.
Good.
We're looking for business development people. So.
No, we can talk about that afterwards.
Off the camera.
This I think is really nice. For one, that you have the very nice demo that you can run and a clear application, but also that you so quickly can adapt it, and that it is so flexible and so easily modularized, so you can actually quickly integrate it to your own systems or other systems in this way, as you did.
So you had built a platform, and then it's like up to us as in our imagination, what are you going to use it for? Mm-hmm. What's useful?
Exactly. Could be a game changer for commercial applications. Right?
So coming to that then, and the question that we've been waiting for a long time. God. It's hard, we always went into rabbit holes all the time and never come forward to short,
and you're still not satisfied because we don't know what's transformers here, what's guns in here, what's what is recurrent neural networks, what's happening behind the scenes. You avoided. Because
I'm a bit frustrated about that, but let's go anyway.
Because we understand that ChatGPT is whatever it is, but what types of actually I'm not going to let him go on this. What are the types of algorithms that you're using for the different pieces here? That we used to elaborate on what is happening, right?
Yeah.
What is the algorithms? What type of algorithms for the different parts? Can you elaborate on that? That is yours, and this is your secret, I guess.
Yeah. I mean and this is maybe to make Anders less frustrated. the algorithms we use are actually quite simpler than kind of really large language model
Of course.
kind of things, or even machine learning and neural networks that you need a lot of data to train on. I think this is going to be a very exciting thing in the future for robots. But today, those big algorithms can only be trained on text, or, they're quite, text is the most commonly available media
You don't have
on the internet, right? So, but we don't have data about how people move their face. We don't have 10 million hours of recordings of multi-party interactions where the data is annotated and it's in the same format and so on. When we do that, we're going to be able to do much, much cooler things in human-robot interaction. So we use much simpler algorithms. We do use some classifiers and to do things like I understand when you're asking about time, there are 1,000 ways you can ask about time or directions. So you can use different words. The question can be longer or shorter. Intent identification kind of things. Those are things that we build in-house.
Right.
But they're still much simpler classifiers because you don't really need a lot of data, a lot of complexity to solve those problems.
So it's also combining some of the traditional kind of chatbot techniques like intent identification that you have. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But isn't that the point, that we need to understand? We have Occam's razor and we have Einstein's razor.
Never heard about the Einstein razor, but I see what you mean. I don't think he had a razor given his beard.
No, I don't know if there is an Einstein's razor. I invented it.
No, but I think it's nice. You shouldn't use more. You should. The simplest solution that you can find is usually the best one, right? The Occam razor kind of practice, right?
I mean, yeah, there is a. This might take us away from the commercial discussion.
Yes,
but
we've been pushing it for half an hour already. So.
But it might close the circle on the.
Come back.
Yeah, I'll try to say things you already know. But the going back to the point that the goal is not to build a machine that is as intelligent as possible, but to build it in a way that make people feel like it's alive. So, I mean, I worked at Disney at some point in transition, and we learned about all the Disney design school where you can animate a chair and make people cry, right? And then you can animate a cup and communicate so much depth and emotion into it. And okay, you have all these language models and all of that AI, but you have that what we call social AI that we're trying to solve with Furhat. So a lot of that can be very simple. I mean, if you think there's a psychological concept called suspension of disbelief.
Yes, I know. I use it quite a lot. Also, yeah. But please describe it.
Please describe it for me. I don't know it.
So suspension of disbelief is quite amazing. So something that we all have. The idea is that when we can perceive something that we know intellectually is fake, we have the ability to trick our brain to think it's real. To give you a few examples. So you go to the movie theater, you watch a movie, you know the movie is fake, but you have a benefit of telling your brain that this story is real, because then you can emotionally engage with it. You can cry, you can laugh, you can be happy, you might end up having nightmares and so on. Right, but you know it's fake, but you suspended your disbelief. When you entered the movie theater, you said, I know this is not true, but I will suspend that idea. Now it's a real experience. Kids are amazing at that. So, the younger we are, the easier it is to suspend our disbelief. If you've seen a kid play with a toy, right, you give them something that doesn't even move or talk, or it's a piece of plastic, and it can become their best friend, and they can hang out with it for a month and talk to it and go on adventures with it. The older we get, the more difficult it becomes to suspend our disbelief. But if we're able to get there, suddenly we're interacting with things like a robot as if it's our best friend, and But you need the script to be good enough. If the movie script is not good enough, if it has a lot of bugs in it, then it's really tough to take it for real. The same with the robot. If the robot is, blinking at the right time, smiling at the right time, looking at you at the right time, if enough conditions happen, suddenly we see people, there's really cool research about that, where people start to interact with it as if they were interacting with a human, showing genuine emotions, responding very quickly, interrupting it, arguing with it, getting emotional. And that's the type of experience we want to create. Whether that's easy to code or difficult is really a secondary thing. The goal is to get them to suspend their disbelief.
The human mind is really, amazing in some ways. I mean, it does. Sometimes, if it wants to believe something, it chooses to do so, even though it can, as you say, rationally, very clearly understand this is not true or real, right? But if it gets too absurd, too extreme, or too badly done, then, you can't even suspend the disbelief.
Yep.
So then it doesn't work. But if you just make it sufficiently good and you have humans that wants to believe it, it will suspend disbelief and it will choose to believe. Like I did when I watched like A Space Odyssey, it's one of my favorite movies, and HAL 9000. I knew very well, of course, it was a robot, but I felt it was a human, right? When you have that.
But I think I have no competence in this area, but for me, you said it. It's actually how well it's done. So it can be outrageously crazy, but it's how the narrative, how it's done, how it's executed that allows me to immerse in it. And then because it's like, this is painful. I mean, like, you can look at the science fiction movies, and some are that one is more crazy than that one, but the way they did it allowed me to immerse in it. And so I think
we need to speed up here a bit, because I have so many more topics, and I love to speak more about your book as well, with some advice for building startups, and I love to have more philosophical discussions.
And we need to have some business application discussion here, because I really think we need to go there now.
So let's go there. We've seen this kind of awesome demonstration of how you can use Furhat robots and integrate with ChatGPT and whatnot. But what can you use it for? Can you perhaps go through some examples of what you're already using it for? You mentioned like research examples, doing studies on it. Can you give some kind of highlights of what it can and will be used for?
Sure. So, Samer said, I think 80%, maybe 70% of our customer base is researchers. So that's where we are, and it's not because, in some ways it's chosen, because that's where Samer comes from, and that's where the company has its heritage and roots. So it made a lot of sense to start there. Obviously, in research and universities, you have a lot of interest in researching. So since this is an innovative tool, platform, product, however you want to categorize it, there's this built-in interest in starting there. So that's where we start. But obviously, as time goes by, we want to go out of the lab, so to say, and really put robots into the real world. So the idea ultimately is to have robots in situations where it does make sense to have robots in. So we've done quite some work on the commercial side. Again, because of where we are in terms of product adoption, or even technology adoption, perhaps more than product, we're still at the very base of the S-curve, right? So you've got the adoption curve, Simon curve, exactly. So we're at the very bottom here. Hopefully now with OpenAI and applications like that may accelerate adoption, because from something that was quite complicated to do anything with, we might just close that gap. Cross the chasm in a way, and get to non-techie developing application, or not actually developing application, but coming up with applications without having to developing them, like hard coding them. So that's where perhaps new technologies like OpenAI or other.
But the obvious use cases is, of course, you want to interact with someone at an airport, or you want to interact with someone at the Hauptbahnhof at the train station, and you're a little bit confused, and you want to get to the right track, or all that stuff. I think this has already, to some degree, you have already proven those use cases, and you might even have a couple of them in production. I don't know.
We've done quite a lot, actually. So we, just to use what you just said, we did work with Frankfurt Airport DB, Deutsche Bahn, in Germany, where it's fairly easy between brackets.
Yeah, you have a frame of questions.
Exactly.
That is quite.
You know where the gate is. You know where the airplane is taking off from. So we know the timetable. So once you integrate the back end, it's fairly easy to, given the time that it is currently when the person asks the question, am I late to my gate? Then it's fairly easy for Furhat to give the answer. Okay, speed it up. Or if you've built up the map of the airport, one could direct people towards the restrooms or the McDonald's or whatever may be in the airport. So we've been working with airports. We've been putting Furhat in a concierge situation, greeting people, welcoming
like
people.
in conferences or what?
Conferences, definitely. Buildings, like a host.
Actually, I'm going to pitch. You need. Can we have Furhat as a concierge for Data Innovation Summit? In May.
Absolutely. I brought, we have like a digital contract, so we can.
Just need to pay up, I guess.
No, yeah, sure. I mean, we have quite a few clients, big technology
expos and stuff.
Yeah, integrators, Accentures and others, Atos, who use Furhat in those kind of settings, like to show technology in situ, right? In operation as host of their company. Welcome to. So that we've done. We keep doing. We've been working with pharmaceutical companies, running health screens. This is quite interesting. So typically, you don't want to talk to a stranger about.
Okay. So it adds privacy.
Yeah, absolutely. So you could, there is something that comes built in with human is the judgment that we carry, right? The biases that we have and the backpack that we carry with us, and so robots obviously don't have that.
Yeah.
So there is a case for in a medical situation, in a recruitment situation. We've been working with a company here actually in Sweden doing so-called unbiased recruitment. Because if you are, again, a recruiter and someone comes and doesn't fit your worldview or your map of the world, and then it's quite tricky to, again, you carry those biases. It makes it very difficult for you to let go, and perhaps you judge more the person on how he or she looks rather than what comes out of their mouth. And Furhat doesn't do that. Furhat takes the content of the speech for what it is.
I really like the idea that AI can actually be used to increase privacy, to increase being objective and unbiased. In applications like this, so many people think the opposite all the time, right?
Right.
But if you use it in situations like this, it actually does instead increase privacy. I think it's a big learning that a lot of people should think about.
Definitely.
Awesome. So, more scientific applications, you have commercial solutions, airports, train stations,
shopping is a big one.
Shopping malls or something.
Yeah, shopping malls for sure, welcoming, greetings and so forth. But also we are moving towards unmanned stores, right? I'm sure you've seen them.
Yes, getting there.
Right. And so
You're in Sweden as well, or where do they have unmanned stores?
ICA actually has unmanned stores. Obviously, Amazon has his own. 7-Eleven has unmanned stores.
Cool.
Coop. There you go. So more and more in airports, you have those. Like you enter this thing with your bank ID or your credit card, and then you buy what you want. But that, what we say always at Furhat is that the purpose is not necessarily to optimize, and we were talking about process optimization before, but perhaps to bring back the human element into the transaction. So move away from a pure transactional experience to a real human experience augmented by technology. So we say, our vision is really to not to displace people's job, but to actually augment their job. There are many situations across vertical, across industries where tech can improve the well-being of people doing their job. Healthcare is a big one. Education, clearly, where the both physical or emotional load is such that you could actually be aided by technology.
I'm not sure, Henrik, how many times we said this. AI shouldn't replace people; they should augment people. But it needs to be, I think, repeated time and time again, because so many people don't still get it. And you say it as well here and now, and I think it's really important.
And I think if you truly want to dissect what augmentation means, and I think I almost made the T-shirt quote before, it's not the people changing to the machine. It's the machine that you change to what fits the way our brain has worked for millions of years. That's augmentation, in my opinion. And then these kinds of technology starts to bridge that gap. And I think, so when we really want to dissect what we mean with augmentation and what it really means to be seamless in an interaction with humans, then we need to think again around a lot of the stuff we have done on UX. That's not the complete picture. It's not even halfway there. It's so much more that could be done to augment the machines to be on the human terms, so to speak.
And we can quickly go back to the unmanned store example. Of course, in an optimized system, you don't need a robot, right? You just type your security number on the iPad. You get past the door. The cameras everywhere. You don't get to steal anything, and then you get out, and it's automatically.
So technically, it's done.
Technically, it's perfect, but we human love connection. If you go back to the core of what the shopping experience, it goes back to being, meeting at a marketplace, building trust over time with a person that you've been buying meat or fish or fruits. It's beyond just a transaction. It's like a connection with the people you buy it from.
So the value add basically for unmanned store, for example, is that you also get like a more social connection and some kind of improved customer experience.
Exactly. And if you're lost, imagine the number of people. It might be easier for us, and even further down for our kids to get used to those kind of systems, but elderly person that's suddenly facing a unmanned store. What do they do? How do they do? No one is going to come and help them. Suddenly you have Furhat to whom you can ask questions. Where's the ketchup?
I think this is a really, really important point that, we are all at different maturity levels of interacting with technology. And if I go to an unmanned store and I've done it 100 times before, I used to do it, right? But then you have the one person who has never done it before and needs someone to help and get guidance to get a smooth experience the first time. How are you going to do that? I have an electric car and I've been trying to figure out how to charge it. And we have an experience now which is atrocious, where each one of them stupid electric chargers has decided that the process, it looks a little bit different. Sometimes you pay first, and sometimes you put in the electricity first, and if you don't do it in the exactly right order, nothing works. And then you stand there in the middle of the night, minus 20 degrees going up to Åre, and you're so mad, right?
Right.
And this is technology a lot of times,
yes.
And then it's trial and error. And this I can see so many applications where, of course, when you've done it 100 times, you don't want to talk to a robot. You just do it. But that's not the point. The point is to have a seamless interaction every time, and even if you're completely new to a system.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's talking even in terms of commercial applications. A good way to look at this is like look at where we have in society replaced people already with efficient systems that are meant to save time and money, but don't care about user experience. Like you go to a shopping mall, you have a big screen where you touch things to look for a toilet, right? And like you can spend 5 minutes there, get very frustrated. You might be a child or an elder or a tourist. It's a very bad user experience, but we've replaced a human. Like look at those places, and then where humans were providing value, and then remove that experience and put a robot instead.
And actually, we removed a human, and the solution we put in place is not really even half of what
very
it used
far
to
from
be.
what that person was doing.
You know,
reality,
and now we
right?
have technology to really bring it back up to par.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
We actually say we don't replace, back to what we were saying, we don't replace people, we replace bad tech.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I have more of that, please?
That's actually a very good point.
That's a
I love
good
it.
point.
We should replace bad tech. And if I may, I'm pushing ahead a bit here, and I'm thinking about combining two topics together here. One is your book about, how hard can it be, but also if someone is listening to this and they think, this robot, I have an idea of how to make use of it for an unmanned store or a hairdresser saloon or whatnot. What would be your recommendations for someone to build a successful business on top of Furhat technologies, and they are just getting started? What would be your recommendations now, besides talking to you? But actually, how should they, get a successful business, starting potentially building on Furhat? What's the first step you take?
From my experience, should always try to start, be niche. Like, what is it 100%. I have knowledge about, have convictions, I've tried different things. And
let's take a concrete example, I think, if you may. Let's take the hairdresser example. Now, someone has a hairdresser saloon. They think, I want to try out having Furhat robots, in the store or in the saloon. And now they have, perhaps they have it to get the idea of what kind of haircut they want. I don't know. What do they do? Okay, now I have this idea. What's the next step?
Yeah, Furhat could be in a booth. I know it's gonna. I've had 2 beers, so maybe I can be creative.
Okay, so the first idea or advice would be take 2 beers and
take 2 beers, then get creative. No, but again, you may not want to replace the person who welcomes you into the hairdresser, the hair saloon, because that hostess or that hairdresser is useful. But rather use Furhat as an advisor. You perhaps build even a recurring business around this, because you keep coming to the same hairdresser because Furhat gives you advice on, hey, you look good, or maybe I like better the haircut you did last. Let me show you a picture of yours, what we did last time. So maybe you can have a screen connected to it, have a discussion about beauty, and perhaps you can augment that and provide, I don't know, makeup that goes along with the haircut.
But let's not go to the product too much. You're trying to solve the solution now, I think, for the hairdresser. But I'm thinking more, you want to build a startup.
Business.
Yeah, the business side of it. Like they need to get some funding, or they need to define the business idea. They need to have their business plan, or these kind of things.
So maybe to think of what we do for if someone wants to use our product, what are we doing and what they should be doing in their business. So we say that we want to build a tech company. The leading platform for people to build commercial applications for social robots. In a way, what Apple did for the iPhone, what Microsoft did for the PC, we want to do it for this new device. Right?
So the business model for Furhat is basically to be a platform for other companies.
Build an ecosystem.
Right.
So really our success is dependent on people actually ending up building businesses on top of robots, finding commercial applications, scalable, obviously. So we don't sell to consumers because obviously it's still very difficult for someone an individual to invest, the money even to get a robot and so on. But what we're not good at is understanding very niche markets. We're not a healthcare company, we're not an education company, we're not a customer service company, and so on. So instead, we're like, okay, if you have something you're very good at, you have really understood like the supply chain in placing devices in airport, and you believe robots can transform that environment, like you're the right person to build that company. Preferably, you need to have a lot of financing to start. So we don't target entrepreneurs yet, but we target big innovation departments in large corporations, because they would have the enough muscle and infrastructure in place to take something to market.
So given that point then, and just trying to stick to the startup idea in the book as well, so you don't directly support the person that wants to start a startup. They have to find some other means to get the funding to do the initial scaling, so to speak, themselves. And I guess that comes back to your book then. And how should they really do that? Since, you're not an accelerator at Furhat, right? You have another solution, and they need to find other solution. So what should they do? If I now have this idea, who do I speak to? How do I get started?
Yeah, we have, as Samer was saying, we have very few one-man partners. And of course, we have some consultants here and there in different countries who, again, are specialized in their fields. So we have through a partner network. So we have some partners, say, working in HR. They know the HR field. They think that Furhat can help in mental health, say, or in coaching. So you take Furhat and you have a conversation when it comes to, talent development, let's say. If you are a first-time manager, how do you provide feedback to your employees? Maybe you need to train first on Furhat before,
You're pitching Furhat a lot here. I'm trying to get back to your book a bit here and just thinking, if we could have some kind of best practices for what to do to get started, and perhaps some...
To get started as a company, you mean? Mm-hmm.
Yes. And perhaps some examples of what not to do. If they do this in this way, they perhaps will fail quickly. If you do it another way, it may be a higher chance of succeeding.
Yeah, what you should do as an entrepreneur, I guess, is don't get too attached to your first idea, because it's probably wrong.
That's a very good.
Right?
That's almost a T-shirt quote.
Definitely. Yeah. Then once you start with something. Obviously, you start with a set of assumptions, as Samer did when he started, and then you pitch it and you see if it sticks. Right? If it sticks, perfect. Keep going, and as you keep going, you'll find more use cases, more interest, and you will widen the scope, and then eventually you'll have to find something that is scalable, something that you can, actually dedicate a lot of time in, and when you can see that whatever finance you invest in or others invest in, they need to get return on their money, right? So at some point you have to niche yourself. That's where we started from, I guess.
And I think if I don't recall incorrectly here, I think you wrote something about, you need to pivot and pivot again or something, right? Is that what you mean? That one shouldn't get too attached with the first idea, but be...
Yeah, you need to be nimble. You need to be agile. You need to be fast. I guess one of the Silicon Valley mantra.
Move fast and break things.
Exactly. You have to, right? Because you don't know, especially when you have something that is new. You don't know where it sticks best. So you move fast. Like now we believe that commercial is gonna, it's gonna open up this year, next year. So we are putting more, time and efforts and resources internally so as to go towards commercial applications. So we are allocating finances and recruiting people and doing that kind of things to make sure that we execute on our beliefs based on where we are and what we've seen. ultimately, I guess it comes down to the T-shirt. It's like you have to do the work. You can have great ideas and you can spend forever doing, analysis. And
what do you mean with have to do the work? I have my thoughts when you say that, but what's your thoughts? What do you really mean with you have to do the work or the work?
The work. Well, it's all encapsulating, I guess. First, nothing happens if you don't work at it yourself, right? I mean, you have to, if you're a leader in an organization, you have to, demonstrate it to others. So you have to do the work yourself. You have to show, you have to lead. You don't lead by having nice theories. You lead by demonstrating, actual results. So that's perhaps one way to interpret it. Another one is that you do have to, do the work. I mean, I go to the gym, I practice some sport, and you do have to put in the hours. Nothing is going to happen. I mean, there's the 10,000 hours rule. I think it's much beyond that.
But I think this do the work. The way I connect with that quote is that there's a difference between do the thinking and do the work. So I know exactly how I can grow Derdax, and I know exactly how I should do things. And then Goran slaps me last week. Boom, boom, boom. Henrik, fuck off! You need to put 4 hours in, and you do that training, and then you put it off, and then you do and then you get it done, and you get Do the work means going from words to what do you need to do in order to have a webinar or a training or sell something. So you think you're doing work when you are doing it, but you're not actually putting in it to paper. And I have another anecdote on the same topic, do the work. I'm trying to get really good study habits going with my 15-year-old son. And he's actually putting in time, but it's not doing the work. And this is his own work, and it's affecting his grades. So I saw a quadrant. How do you learn? You can read, you can listen, you can view videos, but then you need to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, and someone in math said doesn't matter how much you read, you need to do the 100 repetition exercises until it sticks. Yeah. That to me is do the work.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, I guess the whole concept of building a company, if you think of being entrepreneurs, the core activity is creation. Like you're trying to build something that doesn't exist, and that's not ideas. That's not concepts and theory. That's really changing something, creating, right? It's the act of creating. You're creating a company, but a company is just a big thing of many, many little things that you build. Every little deal, every person you recruit, things that have tangible impact on the world.
You have an academic background as well, and it would be fun to hear if you agree with this. One thing, if you define science as building knowledge, and then you define engineering as building a product, something that you have use for and some users, then I would say that both is necessary. You can't build a product unless you have the knowledge. So you need to build the knowledge. But if you don't build the product and just have the knowledge, it's useless. So, but then the question is, what should the balance be? And I think a lot of people perhaps spend too much time building the knowledge and not enough time building something that you can test.
Yeah.
Right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a big spectrum of things. There's applied science and theoretical, science, where there are scientists who don't care if their science has any impact on the real world.
It's just basic research.
It's an intellectual journey.
Ugly thing to have value for it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it's really you and your intellect going on a journey for 20, 30 years. And you're the only maybe person enjoying that process, and like-minded people. And then, of course, there is the applied, you build, and you understand the world so that you can make something out of that. You have the ultimate goal is not just understanding, but it's changing. Obviously, I left academia to do that. So I'm more biased to that end of the spectrum. Yeah, really changing the world in some form, using the knowledge in something that changes, makes an impact.
But actually, when we come to do the work, I think there's another very profound learning here. So when we are in ideas and when we are thinking, sometimes we need to have really broad strokes to understand where we're going and we start seeing it. But the crazy thing with doing is that you're typically down on the most granular level it is. So to have both the idea and be a person of ideas that can enjoy and that can master the nitty-gritty stuff of coding an algorithm, putting together a database of prospects, the most, whatever it is, it's like in the end you decompose and decompose and decompose and decompose, and doing is about that level. And I can see this if we talk data and AI transformations in enterprise. We have fancy management consultants doing the PowerPoint jig. And it's in the executive and looks beautiful. And everybody who knows what this is all about know how many layers you need to decompose. And the real battle is, you know what? We're going to paint the Mona Lisa. It's a 5,000 piece puzzle. And you need to place every piece one by one. And that's doing. Paint, envisioning Mona Lisa, yes. Doing it piece by piece. I don't know. I think this is, sometimes I get lost in enterprises when the big strokes is sort of there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think just do.
Do.
Exactly. I forgot the Edison quote, but it's like... forgot the first part, but without execution, it's just hallucination, right?
I like that one. I heard that one before.
That's awesome.
You can have ideas all day long, but until they meet the real world, and you can get feedback.
Do you know where that quote comes from? I don't, because I've used it. I stole it from someone.
Right.
And it goes like this.
The ideas without execution is a hallucination. That's
and the person who told it to me, vision without execution is hallucination.
That's right. Yeah, maybe that's
vision or ideas.
Right.
Exactly. Right. I don't know where that comes from, but I love it.
I just have to Google it.
Attributed to Thomas Edison.
It is Edison. So vision without execution is hallucination. So
it says Thomas Edison. Okay, I'm gonna. That's a T-shirt.
Yes.
It's an old T-shirt.
Going to more philosophical kind of topics, perhaps we should go there.
Yeah, let's do. We're already
to do that as well, and I love philosophy as well, and that basically means you speculate a lot.
And what about quantum mechanics?
Yes.
Well, that's heavy. I think Samer needs a beer now.
But he is not doing that.
But hearing from you both, what do you think about philosophy? I know that you, Samer, like philosophy. Any thoughts on your side?
Yeah, we're both addicted to Lex and Dan Dennett and Sam Harris. And
do you have some favorite philosophers or topics of philosophical discussions?
I've got my favorite. I got stuck for many years on all the favorite, determinism and free will and all that stuff. I'm trying to figure out. Actually, that's what brought me to Furhat.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, can we build consciousness in a robot? Can we build conscious AI? Are we not just robots ourselves? That's how it started for me.
That sounds like awesome topics. Is this basically your favorite topics as well, or do you have any?
It's one of the favorite topics. Whenever we get some time off, me and Arnaud, we end up talking a little bit about those things. It's an area that I maybe dug more deeper into in my early 20s. Spent a few years reading and digging, going really down the rabbit hole. Quite deep for a few years, yeah.
Some specific philosopher, or?
At the time it's funny, I was just still actually in Syria, so it was just the kind of the digital world was starting to become available. So I think there was a show called The Four Horsemen. It was Richard Dawkins and Hutchins and Sam Harris and Daniel Dennett that started this. I would say like the early version of group podcasts. It's very fascinating. It's on YouTube. It's very old, like 20-year-old. They would just sit around a table. So it's a politician, a moral philosopher, a biologist, and Dan Dennett is it's called a neurophilosopher, philosophy inspired by how the brain works. And they would sit and have a glass of whiskey and like turn the tape on and sit for like 4 hours.
That's our kind of podcast.
Yeah. It's quite interesting if you look at the Four Horsemen. So I started there, and then I started reading their books, and that was my starting point. And then got more into like information theories around,
but should we?
And so on.
Yeah, I'd love to get started at some point. Should we start with free will or something, if that's okay?
Do we have a choice?
Yeah,
we have free will to answer.
I think it's all.
That was boom.
It's very meta there. I love it.
That was meta. That was good.
Okay, Arnaud, do we have free will as humans, or I guess robots do not, right?
Robots do not.
Yes.
No, and I don't think we do either.
Ooh, that's an interest. Do you agree?
Well, it depends what you mean by free will. Sorry.
Yeah. But your definition of free will.
I mean, I guess the most common people, how they refer to free will. Yeah, definitely. There's no, we're guided by the laws of the universe, by the physical world. And so everything we do that we think we're changing how things are going to unroll is just an illusion. Yeah.
Okay, let me start. Yeah, okay. So I do think that humans have free will. I think that Furhat Robots could also have it in the future. Do not at the current moment, but could easily have it soon. I think, to define it, I think we need to go to the definition of consciousness as well. But let me just linger a bit on the free will topic before we go there. So I guess, you have to go to determinism to really understand this question more. And if I were to interpret you in your answer in humans not having free will means that the world is deterministic.
Right.
Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, or at least not undeterministic in a way that we have some sort of we're in a driver's seat driving the car. So it's the randomness maybe, but it's
quantum
not
mechanics
control.
could still potentially, if you believe that's the model of the world, be random, but it's not in our control anyway, right? Okay, but I would argue then, even if you can predict something, let's say you can predict the weather, does the weather have free will? I'm trying to, do you see what I mean here? So let's say that the weather, the cloud is moving in this way, a butterfly in Japan is flapping his wings, causing the weather to move in a certain direction. And then the question is does the weather have agency, I would argue? Does the weather in some way have the choice to change how the weather should be? I would say probably not in this case, because it doesn't have agency, it doesn't have consciousness. But as soon as you have some kind of agency, meaning that you can choose how you should play a pawn in a chess game or something, you do have agency. So if you think a human playing chess and think in that level of abstraction, would you say that each player playing chess as humans have free will in how they choose to play the game? If you just... Would you say still no, that two humans playing chess does not have free will in how to play it?
Well, the next move they'll make on the chessboard will be determined by the previous moves, right? So in a way, they don't, I guess.
But okay, so I see.
What you're saying is they have free will, but they are reacting in relation to what's the optimal move to what he just did on the other side of the board, and therefore not free will. He's responding to the previous move.
exactly. I guess the issue is that, and for me, that has been what I realized. I mean, we tend to mix, I guess, determinism with undeterminism, right? It's either it's deterministic, as in Newtonian laws of physics, and according to which, if you rewind the universe down to the Big Bang, you could, play it again. Nothing would change. It would be exactly the same because the conditions were the same. Nothing had changed, right? So that's deterministic. What is probabilistic, then, this idea of quantum mechanics, where electron can be in different position here or there, or in the superposition, is different than the clockwork of the universe. And both are true, right? The thing is that we people, at some point, we have to we are not, the brain is deterministic, right? The brain functions, as we just said, according to the laws of physics, but we are not the brain. We are like a projection of the brain. And so we have this idea of making decisions, but that's only because we don't know the options that we have, but the brain has already decided, right?
Yes and no, I would say. And it's a difficult topic, and we probably need one more beer here.
One more beer or two.
I would actually compare free will to feelings. And let me try to elaborate a bit here. What does feeling mean? Feeling mean I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm angry, or whatnot. If you think really hard, what does angry mean? It just means some kind of state of the brain in reality that can be, in an abstract way, defined as a feeling of being angry. Does that mean that the feeling does not exist? Just because it can be defined as a state in the brain? I would argue not. I mean, just as you can say that the car, which is far less complicated than the brain, can potentially have a feeling of, it's cold today, it's hard to get started, I'm feeling a bit tired. I think you can use the term feelings for cars as well, any complex system. So just because you can define a brain as having a certain state doesn't remove the usefulness and the meaning of the word feeling. You see what I mean?
Yes.
I would say the same about free will. So just because you can define the exact movements of the particles, of the quants or the atoms or the strings or whatever you would like to define, doesn't mean that free will does not exist. It simply means that we as brain, if you look at the higher level of abstraction, still have the agency to choose what to do. So that means that even though there may be determinism or even quantum mechanics, I don't think that plays in at all to the question of free will, then it still means you have free will, even if there is determinism. I'm not sure if I explained myself properly here, but do you see approximately where I'm going here? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, perhaps it's there's two different things. One is more of an, free will exists in terms of thinking how I perceive the world. I feel like I have free will.
Yes, it's a feeling.
Yes, and exactly. That kind of subjective experience is useful.
Yes,
because it gives me some sort of illusion that motivates me in life. It allows me to make decisions, have ambitions.
But it's a bit more than an illusion. I agree it's a subjective kind of feeling, but it is also true in some level of abstraction that you do make a choice. You do choose how to move the chess. At
least you have the experience of thinking you have the choice. Because it's gonna be very difficult to dissect that deeper, but I mean,
But this is a really difficult conversation because you really need to calibrate the abstraction layer. What level of abstraction and what frame are we talking from?
Right.
So if you're talking from my personal intellect and my whatever consciousness is, if you talk from Henrik, I can experience free will in this context. But then it's like if you take the meta conversation on this. So in order to have a meaningful conversation on this, we first need to calibrate, I argue, what abstraction are we talking about here? Otherwise, we are not on the same planet in conversation. Is that fair?
Defining what we're talking about.
So you need, what's the point of perspective to talk about free will? You need to first define point of perspective, and then we can discuss and elaborate what is free will. Otherwise, we are sort of actually maybe not even talking about the same thing. That's what I hear.
I mean, I guess maybe a good way to maybe agree, here's a proposal, is that if you observe some decision someone made, if you're able to reverse engineer that decision to, down to something that goes beyond this person. So like, if I can trace back every neuron firing in the brain and I know why that neuron fired, and I can understand like, there was this chemical and this chemical came from this place. And so I can really explain this without the need to bring some sort of a person in the picture.
Yeah.
So there's no dependencies to some other person.
To something that I can't really reverse engineer. I can reverse engineer this decision. I can understand exactly why this person moved this on the board. And I realized actually this person didn't even need to be conscious to move that piece, because we could trace back this decision physically, chemically. Then maybe we could say, okay, we can agree that there's no
free will.
This could be one way to argue. Let's add another one. Let's say that I controlled Henrik completely. He couldn't make a choice by himself. No, right? I'm not.
I think you manipulated me well enough.
That's what Furhat is doing, right?
No, but this would be a definition of Henrik not having free will, because he's being controlled by something else in some way, right? So he's being controlled. The beer. Let's say he's playing chess now. Henrik is playing chess, and I have some kind of electrode implanted in his brain, and he wants to make this choice, but I'm forcing him to take another choice. I think we can all agree that Henrik would not have free will at that point.
Right.
Well, that's an extreme example, but that is clearly not free will.
Yes, right?
Or he doesn't have a choice.
Is that free? Yeah, free will or choice?
It's a choice. He doesn't have any options.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe yes or no. If there is no options, then it doesn't matter if you have free will, because you have nothing to choose between, right?
In order for you not to have a free will, that means that you don't have any options. So therefore, you don't have any free will.
Yeah, sure. Well, he could have the option, but he can't act on it. I think that's right.
So he's helpless.
Yeah. Well, let's say Henrik wants to move the pawn in that direction, and I'm forcing him to move the queen in another direction. Then he does have a choice, but he cannot act on it. He doesn't have agency, right?
But he wouldn't know that he has the choice because you're controlling him. So to him, he would still feel like he has free will.
So let's say I'm controlling his muscle, but not the brain, right? So I'm just controlling his limbs, or he can think still. So he does have a choice in his mind, but he can't really move his arms.
Yeah, but
Then he doesn't have agency. He still have, a choice, but he can't act on it.
Yeah, this is so hard because I'm still
hurts.
It's
so
like
I would argue that this doesn't have free will unless he can act on it.
But the classical argument in from if you believe in free will, I'm in a oppressed country. They can take everything away from me, but they can never oppress me in my mind. Free will, okay. So that means you have oppressed me. You have taken my physical thing, but I hate what you're doing, and you are the despot, and this is not free will. I'm doing it against my will. Yeah. So it's still not free will. So from this context, free will could still, like your example, I could still have free will. I argue if I go down that rhetoric.
I mean, what you hear from Dan Dennett and others is like, okay, so when you said that the word is deterministic, so you basically excuse someone who's like a murderer. Say, okay, this guy shot someone, and then he goes to court, and he says, well, but I do not have free will, so I didn't choose to do so. And so the argument is that, okay, but you did have a choice because you know what would be the consequences. So the difference between 1 million years back and today is that although the physics hasn't changed, it's still the same, The laws of physics are still, the ones that drives us today. We've built a society. We've developed our brains to such an extent that we can project the outcome of our decisions, which we could not before, right? So we've developed the cortex, and so we can project what will happen. What will happen?
What will be the consequence if I shoot someone?
Exactly. And based on that, you should decide whether it's a moral, good or not good thing to do, because you know that if you go that path, there would be consequences. You may go to jail. And that's where the free will or want comes in, because you can project yourself in the future, and it's at the societal level. So if you remove the constraints of society, I guess it would be mayhem. But because we live according to some rules by which we should behave to exist as a community, we have to agree on the rules of the game. And so the game is, don't go to jail, behave so as to not hurt someone. And so now that you know the rules of the game, you should act accordingly. And that's where free will comes in. But remove those constraints and probably it's back to
so it's interesting
Neanderthal.
So even if we have consciousness and we have free will in making small decisions, if you look at all the layers of the physical rules, societal rules, cultural rules, religious rules, and you can go on and on and on, your free will has a lot of walls to bounce against before it can break truly free. And that's why, from your point of view, at least we can argue true free will is limited.
Yes. I think I want to move to another topic about consciousness as well, but
you won.
Thank you.
But
what do I get?
to just I think it's a matter of semantics here. It depends on how you define what free will really is. In one way, if you define it like it should be some kind of way to control every atom of something, then I certainly agree there is no free will. But that means that the term free will have no use. I mean, it doesn't really make sense to even speak about free will if you define it in that way. So I would rather prefer to define it as a different thing, as some kind of subjective feeling that you have. That is that as long as no other agent around you controls me, then I have agency, therefore I have free will. I mean, if that is the way you define it, it at least is some use for that term.
But is this, if we're really honest, maybe we need to have a sense of free will to cope.
Exactly.
So that because as a thinking, intelligent being, if you would put someone in a cage and say you can't move, you go bananas. Yes. So the mind needs to experience, freedom.
Yes.
And then if you really peel the onion on reality of all the different layers of constraints that we're living in, it's an illusion. But if we took away that illusion, it would probably not be good. I mean, like as an intelligent species, that would kill us. So I think there is merit to what you're saying, that we need to have free will and we need to feel free will. But we can also be really cynical, and how free is free? Is that a compromise in this discussion a little bit?
Sure. If you would not experience it as free will, which you do experience it as is, even though it's not true, then you would not wake up in the morning, because why would you?
Exactly.
Why would you?
It removes the meaning of life.
Exactly.
It removes the meaning of life, right? So free will.
It also, I mean, accepting that there is no free will is one of the most beautiful things you can experience, because you don't really need to pity yourself for your troubles.
But you don't need to take responsibility of any action either.
So
that's really strange.
It's
right?
scary, because what you're saying now, you
wouldn't go that far.
Yes.
But you lose the
you
pity.
went into another rabbit hole.
But you lose the pity. But don't you also lose the drive?
So not having free will doesn't mean that you shouldn't take advantage of your experience of free will, because it's a very good experience. If you have this thing that you're experiencing, you have emotions, right? Okay, you can explain them in chemistry, but you can still enjoy being happy, and right. So why wouldn't you do that? But
so if I relate,
but if you were born in a poor country and you have very little, you can't just say, well, you have free will, you can do whatever you want. We're like, no, I had really very little to do with where I am in life, and this is all being predetermined, and but you can forgive people around.
But how do you explain you from Syria in a context where it's really tough, running a very super cool startup, compared to some of your best friends or peers from school who doesn't? What isn't it a drive? Is it something that you did that you could sort of give free will, as you had the free will and also then the determination to follow that path that put you in a different trajectory than others?
I think we're moving a bit too far off the topic here. I'd love to cover some other topic if that's okay.
Metaphysics.
Metaphysics. Yeah.
What? If we can move to another topic.
Yeah. Sorry, okay. We take that after work.
Yes.
Amar and Samer, and Samer, what is missing today in Furhat Robot to make it conscious?
I mean, but again, what is conscious? So we are really, I also studied linguistics, so like words matter a lot to me.
Yes.
Because we might spend an hour talking and then realize like, oh, we mean different things by conscious.
Love it.
Very
Let's
common.
start there.
Yeah, so this might be a big rabbit hole, obviously.
Try to keep
if we want to just go to Furhat. I mean, the short answer is we don't really know if Furhat is conscious or not.
Okay. I would say it's not, but okay.
Yeah.
To a high degree of
because we haven't defined consciousness. If you define it in some sort of a system, like this is the algorithm that describes consciousness, then my guess is Furhat is conscious against that algorithm.
Because we have tried.
That would be my guess. Or if not Furhat, maybe a Tesla car would be. Or
that I think a Tesla car, no doubt,
could
actually.
be.
But I would argue
but
not.
We've had this.
Case.
No, we had this conversation before. Let me bring it back. But we have tested with a couple of guests. Can you define consciousness as general consciousness and maybe narrow consciousness in a certain context? And if you follow the argument of narrow consciousness, a Tesla car needs to be conscious for what it is supposed to do. Or it need to act at least. But here the semantics is key. The semantics is truly key here to sort that out.
Do we maybe a question, like are we describing consciousness as the subjective experience of someone feeling conscious? Is it more of someone like the engineering, what is happening, the process?
I think subjectivity is another thing. I would love to have a more objective thinking. This is actually something that is conscious, or it is something that is not. But just to elaborate, because we haven't really described, what we have spoken of before.
Yes, please.
So, that means, just as we have narrow AI and general AI, we can potentially, this is something we've invented here, but we could potentially also speak about narrow consciousness and general consciousness. And then humans have a higher degree of general consciousness where we can perceive the world and understand ourselves in that world to a high degree of generality. Whereas if you play chess, for example, and you have a human or a computer looking at that chessboard, the only thing they can perceive then in their environment is the chessboard and the players, so to speak, or what do you call it? The queens and the pawns and the
pieces of the game.
So the only thing that I really have an awareness of is the pieces on the board. Mm-hmm. But that's some form of very, very narrow consciousness potentially, because you are aware of the surrounding. And then potentially, if you have free will, it can act. You can also play chess potentially, given that very, very narrow conscious awareness of the world it's living in. Would you agree so far? Is that consciousness with just understanding the chessboard and the pieces on it?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I guess it's in my head. It's our ability to have a dialogue. Consciousness is
Do you need to act to be able to be conscious?
No, but I think you need to simulate.
To reason, right?
Yeah, to simulate things in your head, like to say, okay, if I and be able to have a dialogue with that simulation. So
right.
I mean,
just inside your own, internally, yes.
So I mean, a lot of philosophers talk about that without ego or this voice in your head that you can negotiate with before you act. You have a simulation machine, right? Can imagine the future, can imagine what will happen if you move the chessboard, and then you can discuss things with it. Like you have a chatbot in your head with your ego. If that's kind of the experience of
that's a reasoning part, right?
But I think it's back to semantics, as Samer said, because on the one hand side, I argue we can go down the sort of consciousness and the reasoning algorithm. And then this is defining consciousness in this neighborhood. And then you can go, does that mean it's self-aware? And when we now define, you were going into what do we really mean with consciousness? Is consciousness about reasoning and understanding this? You can do all this without being self-aware. Or do we bring it back to sort of the human experience of self-awareness? And this is
a chess playing game could be self-aware of its own side, right? It knows it's
but it's different to be self-aware about the different options and playing out the simulation in its algorithm, what's happening. Does it know it exists on a meta level? I think that's a different. I'm not sure
you can like in a universe. Or
no. When what we are doing is, I think we are projecting human emotions on machines, and when we're using these words, right? So I think you are conscious in all its practical terminology and forms in order to play. I think AlphaGo is conscious. Period. Narrow consciousness. Aware and can simulate and can discuss with it. The algorithm is analyzing with itself, what options do I have in this narrow space? But that's not the same as projecting human emotions that I understand and reason and have emotions. So do we put emotions into the mix? I mean, like, this is when it gets really fluffy, I think.
But let's leave emotions, I think, because that's
so if you stay there, I think we are there. I think we are there. Narrow consciousness exists. But it's in the conversation and the semantics we confuse this with human. We are projecting human traits. I don't know. I'm used.
I mean, a lot of people say that like language is very key to the experience or to the rise of consciousness. But
that's real world consciousness, right? Like Elon calls real world AI. There is potentially real-world consciousness, and I think in that case you need to have a language that reason about the real world, right?
But if you didn't, I mean, the discussion, the argument around this is that if you didn't have language, you wouldn't be able to discuss with yourself. It's not about talking with other people, but it's talking with your own.
Go to an example about AlphaGo. I mean, it's some form of language that is using to just do reinforcement learning and trying out from the policy model it does have to take different actions, evaluate, the position it gets. That's some form of language, even though it's very binary and very far from natural language. It's still some form of language, right?
Yeah, there is a system or like a representation protocol. Yeah, no, I agree. In that definition of consciousness, you'd have all the components there in that machine. So
narrow.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just look at OpenAI, it's so you have the language part, right? It can produce as much as a human probably, but is ChatGPT aware of itself? Likely not. I guess so. That's the difference.
I would argue no.
Right,
and I think that's the same thing with Furhat. So
yeah, I would say no actually.
So what's okay? I'm biting my tongue not to say my thinking about ChatGPT here, but
let's go there.
I think you need to have a map of the universe, You need to understand the universe.
Now you know what I'm going to say.
Now we're going to the Anders 4 laws of general AI.
I'm not going to go through all 4 of them, but I think what you are saying right now is basically you need to have a state of the world. ChatGPT does not. It's pre-trained from every piece of data it found from 2021 and before that, but it doesn't have a common state of the world. So every session you interact with it is created from scratch, and nothing is shared in some kind of common state. So it doesn't have some kind of state of the world that it updates continuously. If you take a chess game, it does update some kind of common state of these are the pieces and this is how it's going. The same with the Tesla car. It has some kind of state of this is the position of myself in the lane. These are the pedestrians, the other cars and whatnot. It has a world state and AI models that it perceives with and reasoning capabilities. So it has perception. Mm. It has reasoning capabilities in a Tesla car in this case. It has a state of the world. It doesn't have the 4th part, which I'm missing for general AI, but I think these 3 parts at least give it the ability to have consciousness and free will in how to drive the car.
But it doesn't have a goal, right? So you would say the car go there. Mm-hmm. It would not set the route itself.
It can, It can, right?
You set the end goal. You set the end goal.
If you just exactly, you set the end destination,
not the car itself.
Yeah, but right. Okay. So the goal then would be get to the end destination. It doesn't say how to go there, so it has free will to choose what should the route be to end up with at this goal.
Right.
So you set the goal, yes, but it has the free will to choose how to.
Which is algorithmic, which means that we don't.
But humans are algorithmic as well.
Exactly. So we don't have free will.
I think we can have free will. Algorithmic doesn't exclude. I wouldn't say it excludes free will.
Right. There's a definition of free will is algorithmic by name.
Yes,
like
exactly.
It doesn't say that there's some sort of supernatural process happening. No. So it's just changing the definition of. Because I would say most people in society, when you say you're free, or they say I'm free, I can do whatever I want, they probably don't mean the way that we're meaning it here. You mean it. They mean, they're truly free. They can operate outside this universe somehow. They can break the rules.
Fly. Like they could fly.
Like they could fly.
Right. Or break the physics.
The laws of nature control us in some way, right? So we are controlled by the laws of nature, but I'm not controlled by I could be controlled by Henrik or by you, but not to 100%, at least. But I am controlled, I think, at least by the laws of nature to 100%. And in that case, I have some level of free degree. So perhaps it's narrow free degree. Is everything
narrow free will? we realize we have narrow consciousness, and reality we have narrow free will.
Maybe we can connect that to business, because business, so in a sales situation, which we can all relate to, depending on which side of the table you sit, if you are the sales guy, you will have your process, right? So you will drive your prospect according to your process. Right. So it's very deterministic for you. But for the recipient on the other side of the table, it may look like free will. So he may feel like he can decide to opt in or opt out. Mm-hmm. But you are mastering the process. You are in charge of it. And so you are driving that person to get to buy the car. Right. He doesn't know it yet.
Yeah. So it's a very narrow free will. And you're controlling the free will to get smaller and smaller. So you're controlling the buyer, so to speak.
Right.
And in reality, we're all in the game of a used salesman's car. That's what the world is all about.
I think it's actually useful thinking. Like narrow, you can actually reduce the free will of people and machines if you control them more and more, right?
Yeah, a lot of the world works because we don't have free will. I mean, the world wouldn't really work if you couldn't predict group behavior, right? I mean, the simplest ever example is that most people that are truly very passionate believers in their religion, they simply have their parents' religion. but they still experience free will, maybe an elevated sense of like they really chose this because they studied it very deeply. I mean, the advertising industry has mastered human psychology, so they get you to buy products.
And you think you buy Pampers because you prefer Pampers, but you have been
because you're experiencing your free will that capitalism has given you.
Exactly.
But you're watching if you've ever talked with that's why psychotherapists, I guess, have work, is because they can predict why you've done something and explain it to you. So you go to a psychotherapist and say, oh, I've done this decision. I got married. I bought a car. I said this to this person. And in retrospect, I don't really like it. Why? And then they can explain to you exactly. Like, oh, but they ask you a few questions and then they can go back to your childhood. And it turns out that you didn't really have that much free will. It was your 3-year-old self that has been in control.
The time is flying away. I'd like to have a very, very brief last philosophical discussion or question, and then we end to the final questions, if that's okay. So trying to answer, both of you, as concisely as you can, are we living in a simulation or not?
Yes, but concise, one that is created by your brain. So the reality that we experience is not the reality at the baseline, right? It's the everything you see, everything you hear, the colors, whatever doesn't exist, just exists in your game engine of your brain. So the simulation you create on the fly, and you experience it as being you, having agency and having free will, where in fact it's just your brain projecting you into the world so as to survive. Because end of the day, it's all about survival, making sure that the species propagate, and so you are just an interface to make sure that human keep going forward.
So I see what you mean, and I think you can agree that we are at least living in a simulation in terms of we are only replaying the things that we can experience inside our brain. But then the bigger question, are we potentially living inside a bigger simulation that is controlled by some aliens or some kind of super intelligent being like Matrix? Do you think that's true?
I don't have evidence for it, so I don't know. Maybe. There's this argument, some Fermi paradox or whatever it's called.
The simulation argument, right? Nick Bostrom.
Exactly, that obviously we can't be the only one, so there has to be other...
you mean the Fermi paradox? Okay, right. That's a different thing. Okay.
And if that's the case, those guys have technology that we don't have and could technically create a simulation that would be us, and they could be having fun just like we have fun on PlayStation. So we could be avatars in their world, maybe, but it's far-fetched. I haven't seen Samer glitch since I started at Furhat.
Yes. Okay, Samer, what do you think? Are we living in a simulation?
I would say I'm agnostic to it. I'm
very politically correct answer.
Haven't considered it.
That was my goal, but no, I have considered it, of course.
You have, and what's your reasoning if we are not or not? How did you end up at agnostic?
I mean, I think my scientific brain thinks we're likely in a simulation. And if not, then we are going to create a world like our world, that is going to be a simulation quite soon. So we could also be that. But the question is then, can a world like this exist as a simulation with our full experience? And likely yes, quite soon. But my heart wants to say no, we're not in a simulation.
Okay, so for people who hasn't followed this philosophical question before, why would a scientific brain argue that most likely we're in a simulation? There's a logical, there's a very logical thread here. There's a logical path.
There is a
here.
logical, it's the common kind of explainer of this is that if you look at computer graphics or ability to simulate things in a computer game, things are progressing so fast that in such a short period of time, that give us another few hundred years, and our ability to simulate things in VR, for example, is going to be able to create experiences that will feel very true. And you might throw characters in this game that give them the abilities to sense, and, run this discussion around free will. There would be enough complexity in the system, and it's so well simulated, computer graphics, that those characters will experience, their world will be very, very similar to our world, and their sensory input will be very similar to ours. Their brain will work very similar way. I mean, that ultimately will be the proof of free will and consciousness that we probably don't have it if we were able to build it. But it's not going to take a long time to get there.
And then the argument, are we already part of that game that someone else created?
Yeah.
Have you heard about Nick Boström's 3 arguments for that we are living in a simulation?
Yeah.
I can just...
Yeah, I think it's a good...
So the 3 ones are, 1, we kill ourselves before we become super intelligent. So basically the argument for being in a simulation means that it has to be some kind of super intelligent being that are simulating us, so we're living in their simulation. But if we actually kill ourselves in some kind of World War III or nuclear disaster or whatnot, then we will never make it to that point, because we're certainly not there yet, at least. So that's one reason. And then you can think about what is the probability that we will kill ourselves before we create AGI or some kind of super intelligent being. That's one option. Second option is, even if we have a super intelligent being, like 1,000 years from now, and they are, so extremely much more intelligent than any being or all of the human beings together, they will still never be interested in simulating us, the stupid mere humans. It's like, why should we simulate ants that we see? I mean, we're not interested in ants. We can't learn anything from them. Why should they spend time building some kind of simulation of stupid beings like human beings when they are so much more intelligent? That's the second argument. The third argument is that we are living in a simulation. So then he argues, Nick Boström, that one of these 3 has to be true. And he tries to evaluate, what is the probability for each of them. And he argues there are no other than these 3 arguments. Also, you can speak about that more, but this is what he argues. So, okay, will we kill ourselves? I would at least evaluate. I mean, we could kill a lot of people, even if we have a rather dangerous situation in the world right now, which could lead to a nuclear war. We'll probably not kill everyone, at least. Some people will hopefully survive, and some technology will hopefully survive, and that's a rather high probability, I would argue. It's certainly less than 50%, and certainly less than 0.5%, I would say. So it's rather low percent that we would kill all of us in the coming 100 years or something before we get AGI. Okay, so that's a low probability. Second probability, that even in 1,000 years after we have AGI or superintelligent, that no one would even think about, some kind of school experiment or whatnot to run a small simulation. All these kind of interesting ants or these kind of humans would be fun to simulate in some way, and let's have a super, highly computational kind of environment where we are, playing around in, similar to the Matrix or whatnot. It's kind of low probability that not single, person in this kind of super world of abundance that they have, how much money they want, or they probably don't have money. But this will be a world of abundance. Someone would love to, from, some
play with ants, have an ant farm.
Anthropotic kind of, reason play with it.
Maybe it's just a kid in one bedroom playing SimCity.
Exactly.
That's it.
It's a game. Someone is playing a game.
Someone is playing a game.
So that means if both 1 and 2 are rather low probability, the only left argument is the third. We must be living in a simulation. I think it's very strong rationale here that we are living in a simulation.
Yeah, but and then for me, who's not used to philosophical arguments or consequence chains, it's just like you lost me at the first sentence.
And maybe it doesn't matter, right? I mean,
But
No,
we're
exactly.
having
That's a very
fun,
good
right?
point.
Right.
I actually choose not to think much about it either, because even if we are living in simulation, who cares? I mean,
Yes.
still have fun here, right?
And that's why this is a little bit like you chose to be agnostic.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line.
Since
huh?
it's not so critical for my survival to
Or
believe
happiness.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you lose energy on something that you can't control anyway.
It really doesn't change anything, I guess, in the world today if we are in a simulation. We're still going to have our drive, our perception of free will and all of that.
Exactly.
You know what? Time is flying. I think it's time to wrap this up. And we have a couple of favorite last two questions that we always ask. First question to both of you. What's next in your lives? Business, privately, something sort of, what's around the corner here? What are you working on? What are you doing?
should I
start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. So grow the business. That's what I'm here for. So yeah, we want to really make Furhat the first social robot out there in the world. Public facing in situations where, again, it augments people, it adds value. So for me personally, is grow the business. That's what I'm being recruited for. So top line, sales, managing someone else's free will.
That's a great sales pitch.
That's a good.
I'm going to
And
control you.
do the work.
Yes,
do the work.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Samir, any cool things on the horizon that you want to share?
I mean, yeah, always cool things, always adventures. I am feeling pressure of mentioning Furhat here. She was choosing one topic where what's next. But it's, I feel like we're we're so lucky to be alive right now. It's such a great time to be alive that
So much is happening.
yeah, and so many things that are at an acceleration phase that, if we were just born 20 years off, 30 years off, we're going to miss a
it.
huge piece. Yeah. And the next 10 years are going to be really,
That's right.
yeah. And I
Well
mean,
put.
we don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, 10 years ago, if even us scientists that were in the center of the eye of the storm, we're like in shock, right? So imagine what's going to happen in 10 years. It's really exciting. So I keep a big door open to what the world is going to throw at us. But Furhat is, at a very exciting phase, I think, just robots in general. It brings us to conversations, not only about building a robot, but really about society, philosophy, humans. And
Like today.
yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. It's just an opening the door for a big kind of set of questions that it's really interesting to spend our time figuring out.
Awesome. Anyone that you would recommend to this podcast, someone that you would like to listen to that we have as a guest here?
Elon Musk.
We already tried that one. He's going to come for sure.
That would be awesome. But yeah, anyone more reasonable?
More reasonable.
Well, not reasonable, but
Accessible.
accessible. Thank
Accessible
you.
is a good word.
Yeah.
Perhaps someone from Sweden, because we want to have them live here.
True. Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit biased towards entrepreneurship, so a big, entrepreneur from whom we could learn would be nice. Of course, I haven't gone through all the episodes you've had, so I'm not sure if you've had,
You have some name? Anyone you can think of?
Well, what's hot currently? Maybe, I don't know. I'm gonna throw, whatever. Enride, maybe.
Enride?
Einride would be good.
Yeah.
That would be super cool. I think Einride is doing really cool things with AI and also changing, autonomous driving and the transport ecosystem. So there are a triple whammy of interesting angles for the
definitely.
startup. Good one.
Thank you very much, Samer and Arnaud, for coming to this. I hope you can stay on for a bit longer. Because
Should we
have
say
more
goodbye
philosophical-
to the robot?
Yes, of course. Can we say
maybe Furhat wants to say something to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Thank you all for today. I really enjoyed listening to your deep discussions. If you want to know more about Furhat, please visit us at www.furhatrobotics.com. Have a great evening. Goodbye.
What a great ending. Thank you very much, and looking forward to the after work.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
It was fantastic. Thanks.